We can't come to conclusions. You and I do often come to conclusions and stuff like that, but the majority of the people in this country can't because they're misinformed, filled with delusions by both sides. I came across an idea that I had never heard before. Some random commenter mentioned something that was interesting to me. Donald Trump doesn't know the difference between political asylum and an insane asylum.
What?
Let that sink in for a minute. Think about that. He doesn't know the difference between political asylum, which is what the people at the southern border are claiming, and an insane asylum.
What?
The only time he's heard the word asylum is when it compares to insane.
I don't understand the
Okay, follow me on this train of thought then.
Hello human, it is me Kanuch. I need you to press the subscribe button. I have to feed my many AI babies.
About 10 years ago or so, he heard about the thousands of asylum seekers at the southern border.
Okay.
He, being a very dumb guy, has never heard of political asylum. So he's unfamiliar with the term. He doesn't know what it means. He then digs through his head, digs through his brain, and connects the word asylum to the only place he's ever heard it, insane asylums. So how would he act? Well, if he thought that there were thousands of people at the southern border who have escaped their insane asylum to come into the country, he would tell us, he would complain about all the mental institutions that have emptied their patients onto the border. It would explain why he talks in every speech about every speech he has, how there's no evidence for it, but he complains and says, there was a story recently about a psychologist or psychiatrist, but a psychologist who worked in mental wards in South America. And he said, I worked 24, a good man. He worked for 24 hours a day, taking care of the mentally ill people. And he was sitting there reading a newspaper, and they asked him, what are you doing? He said, I have no more work. The people have all been let go into the United States. Can you believe this? This is what we're doing. That is a Trump quote. Rambling insanity, I know. But he really does believe that South America and Mexico have released anyone they can from mental institutions and told them to come to the United States.
He makes the same claim about the prisons, though, too.
Right, he makes the same claims about the prisons. I agree. There's no evidence for either one of those things being true. He made it up. And I think he made it up. I'm positing the idea that he made it up because he doesn't know what the word political asylum meant.
Oh, I don't think that's what that is at all.
It's pure fiction. He made it up. It's a delusion that he then spreads to people in his speeches as a fact, as a truth, to cause them to fear these mental institutions, these people. Be afraid of the invasions of the mentally ill, the criminals that are coming across the border to rob you and steal your jobs. He misunderstands. He creates a delusion, and then he spreads the fear. That is my new working project, my new thought. I talked about that fear index thing that I put together one time a while ago.
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense, and I re-watched it and thought, it didn't make any sense. This makes more sense. I think this is the Republican thought process. Misunderstand, delusion, fear. This is how they create these things. And I've got like 8 or 9 situations where I think it fits. Where their actual talking points, their policy, their programs fit within this MDF is what I'm calling it. So if you've got an idea about it in chat, hop in, tell me what you're thinking. Go to the Discord, tell me what you're thinking, tell me what you're feeling about it. And this is what I'm going to push to you today. Let's see. If you believe Jesse Waters, you're trans, you vote for Harris. Yeah, Jesse Waters said something stupid. He was trying to be funny. But it falls maybe into that category. Makes sense. He always rants about having crazy people being sent over the border. Right, that's why he's complaining about it, KPP. I think he's complaining about it because he doesn't know what the word asylum means. He misunderstands it. He talks about it in every speech. So I've created a... where are you? Google Doc. Blop. We'll put it up on the webcam screen. Bam! Google Doc. Misunderstanding Delusion Fear. We're going to put him into there. He misunderstands political asylum seekers. His delusion is that from insane asylums and mental institutions and prisons sent to America with the purpose to harm us. And the fear is what he spreads to the people. The invasion of mentally ill criminals are going to rob you and take all your jobs and vote for Democrats and steal all your votes. That is the thought process.
I don't think so.
No, is that not a description of what I'm seeing him push?
Well, he's not just. It's not just the crazy people,
Right.
that claims are coming over. So he's suggesting that South American countries are sending people that they don't want in their country to us.
Mm-hmm. That is what he said.
Probably not true.
Right. There's no evidence for it. If there was, I would look at it and we could weigh it and determine how true it is. But so it's a delusion that he has. So he misunderstands. Then in his own mind, he creates a delusion, a story, a fiction to tell people. Just like that guy reading the newspaper at the insane asylum who said, "I don't have any work
I'm not
to do."
contending with anything other than the idea that it's from a misunderstanding. From his point of view, it's not even a misunderstanding. It's just either he made it up or he has information that we don't have. I'm not sure what I would call that, but I certainly wouldn't call it misunderstanding.
How could it not be misunderstanding? Either he's got information that he doesn't let us know, and no one else can find.
I mean, your point of contention was that he doesn't understand the difference between political and insane asylum.
Right, he doesn't. That's my guesstimate on why he keeps talking about the mental institutions being emptied.
Elite.
If a mental institution,
Certainly elite. Shinsinto has it right. It's not a misunderstanding. It's just fear mongering.
Well, the fear mongering comes later. Step one is him misunderstanding, creating the delusion, and then creating the fear. It's a three-step process, I think. I think he doesn't understand what political asylum is or why anyone would do it. And in his brain, he creates a reason for it to happen or a fiction about how it happens. The man reading the paper asks what you're doing. He said, "I have no more work. The people have all been let go into the United States." No one can figure out what the hell he's talking about. There is no explanation. The campaign was unable to provide an evidence for the existence of a news story about a no longer busy doctor at South American Mental Institution. He invented it. It is pure fiction. He created a delusion that he now spreads to the people. So he misunderstands. He creates a delusion of that guy reading the paper, having no work to do. And that causes fear. That's the fear mongering in the people that he wants to vote for him. That's the three-step process that he took. And sometimes the misunderstanding might not even be his fault. Because you know what else I'm going to
I don't think it's there in the first place.
Climate change.
But,
Does he understand climate change?
I don't know. Probably not.
Probably not. So he misunderstands climate change. Then, because he misunderstands it, he creates stories and fictions.
Well, hold on. Before we move on,
inside his own head.
Asylum and illegal immigration and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is that there are a lot of people coming over our border, and
yes,
also
that's why I put illegal immigration down here too.
Right, and also, most of the people that make asylum claims are not making valid claims, but there are organizations in the United States of lawyers and nonprofits and whatnot that will coach people on what to say so that they can get extensions and be allowed to stay here for asylum and whatnot. And those guys, they got to be stopped.
That sounds like a delusion.
Oh no, it's real.
Well, okay, it's real. It happens. What do the Republicans talk about? What does Donald Trump push when he talks about this? What is the main Republican understanding is that there's millions of lawyers coaching millions of people how to sneak across to steal from them. They over-exaggerate. They create a overly fictional narrative around the fact that you just said. You said some facts, but Donald Trump and the Republicans are going to push a overly exaggerated fictional narrative about it. And why would they do that? Because for the exact same thing. The illegals are going to steal your job. Illegal immigration is a thing that exists. I agree. Republicans misunderstand it. They misunderstand why it happens, how it gets there, and why anybody would do such a thing. And they create delusions around it.
More of like one of those catchy slogans. They took our jobs is one thing, but I mean that hits a little bit harder than labor is a commodity, and if you increase the supply of it, the value of it goes down.
Sure, you're talking about real things that could be discussed.
Yes, but no, there's no political slogan that on either side that hits exactly the talking point without being over exaggerated or
dumbing it down.
Dumbing it down. I mean,
I can respect it if it's dumbing it down, But I think that from talking to actual conservatives in real life, they have a lot of delusions about illegal immigration. I think Donald Trump has delusions about it. He talked about 20 million, maybe more, people being here illegal. And they're pouring across the border, and they're all voting. They vote for Democrats, according to him. Do we think that that's true? Do you think that's true? I don't think it's true at all.
I mean, their kids do.
That's because their kids are Americans.
Only according to the
United States Constitution.
14th Amendment.
Right, United States Constitution. Those are Americans. You can. We've
agreed on
if we want
we've agreed on how trash the 14th Amendment is in the past.
It has problems, but it is still a part of the United States Constitution, and it is still legally binding. Those kids are Americans, and I support that idea. We can add the 14th Amendment to this thing too, because let's keep. What I'd like to do is keep filling in the misunderstandings, and then we'll do the delusions, then we'll do the fears. Does that sound like fun to you?
Sure.
Shinsinto says, I think he was giving talking point, immigrants are bad, scary criminals, make shit up. Yeah, that's part of delusions. Sewell's, delusions are based on misunderstandings. Yeah, delusions are based on the misunderstanding. Either Trump is an idiot and is delusional, or he's an intelligent as he says he is, and he's fear-mongering. Both are bad. I agree with you, Sewell's. Climate change is a thing that I think Republicans misunderstand. I'm going to add another one in here that I think everybody's going to know, and that is welfare. I don't think Republicans understand it, and they're going to make a delusion about it. Maybe we shouldn't go all the way down the list. Maybe we should go left. I don't know
if I'd even. I mean, does anyone really understand the welfare system?
No, they don't.
Talks about it. I don't think so. Like, why Republicans specifically are we talking about?
Because they complain about it and scream bloody murder about it, and they created a delusion about the welfare queens driving Cadillacs. Right? That was a delusion. It didn't exist. This was a Reagan era idea. Welfare queens driving Cadillacs. Paid to have babies. Paid to have babies. This is a delusion that did not exist.
Sometimes it's a delusion. I don't know if it is.
It's a delusion, man. It didn't
Have you been to a Section 8 housing zone before?
Yes, and
the cars are nicer than
poor.
the houses.
No, they're not. Well, if they are, it's because they're bad with money. But these are not rich people. These are poor people. These are people in poverty. They are not gaming the system. They are not making more from having all these kids than they would be by working. They're not tricking honest people out of their taxes. It's a delusion. The welfare queens driving Cadillacs, paid to have babies, was a delusion. And the fear is that they are stealing your tax money. So this is an old version. Republicans and misunderstand welfare. They create a delusion of the welfare queens driving Cadillacs, and the fear is stealing your tax money. This is the thought process. This is what happened, right? Ronald Reagan said, didn't like welfare. He never liked anything about that or Social Security or anything like that. He didn't like these things. So he created this delusion. Either he misunderstood it, like Jules is saying, or he intentionally misunderstood it and intentionally manipulated it to give people the delusion and then give them the fear.
I don't even think that this is relevant. I just don't want to pay for these people. I don't know what the fuck are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is their messaging, their borderline propaganda. I'm taking what exists, and then I'm taking what they say exists, finding that it is incorrect or delusional or absolutely not in line with what exists. And then why do they do that? Why does a whole lot of people who watch Fox News still believe in this idea that people on welfare are eating lobsters and steak, stealing from the hardworking people's tax money?
Well, the whole idea would be that if you're on welfare, you're probably bad with money in the first place. And people who are bad with money do spend that money on luxury goods and services that they don't need. That's just a fact.
Okay.
Yes. Well, it's not a delusion. That's what they do, which is how this idea comes about. And so if you're bad with money, and if you're spending it on a ton of unnecessary things, and also receiving welfare, of course people don't want to pay for that.
Okay. So
I don't
saying
think
that they're queens is the delusion, right?
it's an exaggeration.
It's an exaggeration.
Certainly.
Also,
but I mean,
it doesn't exist. It's
give me
exaggerated.
A break, though.
It's
like
an exaggeration that exists.
You're suggesting that this doesn't happen is absurd.
I'm suggesting
it absolutely does. It does by nature.
And a delusion. I'm saying that it's an exaggeration.
It's maybe an exaggeration.
Okay. And if you exaggerate a thing that you've never seen and someone told you, I think delusion is the right word for it. I'm not saying that there aren't bad people with money. I'm not suggesting that everyone is great with all the people on welfare are super good people. I'm saying that
I'm not suggesting they're bad people. I'm just suggesting they're bad with their money.
They're bad with their money because they're poor, or because they're poorly educated, or because they can't get out of
bad with money,
or they can't get a good job and they can't get education and they fail at education because they're incapable of paying for a good education, or they're incapable of getting an education. There's 1,000 reasons, and if you want to make Republicans vote for you, you tell them that the welfare queens are stealing from them, and then they will support you. Donald Trump does this. He talks about how all the people are gaming the system and stealing from you and taking your tax money.
I mean, I think we have a fundamental disagreement on the reality of the situation. I mean,
so there's a misunderstanding somewhere. You and I can go back. You and
I think you have the misunderstanding here, though. I mean,
you and I go back to the misunderstandings often, and that is a good thing. I think that you and I discussing the misunderstandings and where they lie is good because we are debating these things. I think the delusions are in Republican heads, and that causes them to have fear.
Well, again, I don't think there's a misunderstanding, a delusion, or a fear in this case. It's look, people who are on welfare are terrible with their money, and also I don't want to pay for them. It's not a fear of them stealing my tax money. It's how about I don't pay so much fucking taxes? Maybe people can get better with their money. I don't even agree with the idea that there's such limited opportunity right now. Like, I mean, who doesn't have the opportunity to go to public schools? I went to public schools.
Right, and they suck. Republicans have been removing their funding for decades to make them suck. They've been attacking teachers' unions because they want public school to suck ass. This might be mine then. This is the Waldo one. The public education.
Oh, Jesus. How did you spell that?
Because I don't actually type. Also, there is a microphone in between me and the keyboard, so I can't see it. And I don't type properly. Also, I just kind of fling my hands at the keyboard and let the spell checker work. Public education. Maybe I have a delusion about that. You would be willing, I would be acceptant of you telling me that I have this one. But I think Republicans have been removing their funding, making them suck ass on purpose, intentionally, willingly, so that they can push private schools. Republicans love private school, man. They love those vouchers. They love those fucking pay to go to elementary school plans because they want it to be for profit. They want that money, baby. Every private school in the world wants that government dosh. They want it. They want it real bad. And the way they get it is by convincing a Republican politician to remove funding from the public school and give it to the private school somehow, either through vouchers or through funding programs or through some sort of tuition program. That is why they do it.
I mean, our education system has things about it that suck, for sure. I think probably one of the worst policies of all time regarding education is the No Child Left Behind policy. I mean, I think you are engaging in conspiracy theories right now about how people want education to be done.
Sure. Everybody will have a different idea on that. I agree. But one side the left suggests, hey, let's create a Department of Education. Let's put all the smart people in there to figure out how to do it well. And the right wing wants what? Parents' rights. Parents are stupid. If you could educate your children, you would, and you would be paid to do so. You would be a teacher. If you cannot educate children, a guy who spot welds can't educate his children on algebra, generally. And I know I'm generalizing there, but the reason he sends his children to a school filled with teachers who know how to teach children is so that they can do it, because he usually can't. Why would I take his opinion on how to educate children? He's educated in spot welding, and he's very good at it, and I'm glad he's there. He is a boon to our society, but not when it comes to educating children.
I mean, he does have, he should have the right to decide what his children are educated on.
God,
I mean,
no.
What are you talking about?
He's an idiot.
It's his children. It's
his children, but the reason for education is so that they know things. He doesn't know how to educate children. I've invented this fake person, this hypothetical of a man who is very good at welding. That's his job. He's good at it. He's paid to do so. He's a very good guy. He's an upstanding individual. He has no criminal record. He's great. He's got kids, and he sends them to a school and then complains that they've been wokeified. Why would I take his opinion? Why would I ever listen to his opinion about educating children?
Let's flip it around for a second.
Sure.
Suppose for a moment that schools were actively pushing topics like American exceptionalism and expansionism and whatnot, and you were not okay with that.
Did the education department filled with college-educated people come to that conclusion as this is the way to teach children?
Sure.
Great. Then that's what we should teach children.
So
they haven't come to that conclusion. They've come to the opposite conclusion.
What the fuck? Okay, so your entire idea about how children should be educated is 100% an appeal to authority. That's it. That's all you got. It's a fucking logical fallacy. It's an appeal to authority. No.
An appeal to the educated. Educate the people. The educated people should educate the people. That's my suggestion.
It's an
appeal to authority doesn't even exist within
no.
college. College is the opposite of appealing to authority. You're supposed to attack authority when you go to college. College professors are full. That's why they get tenure, so that they can attack that authority with what they think is correct and right and logical. College is the opposite of appeal to authority.
If this was 1020 AD instead of, or 1024 AD instead of 2024, you'd be sitting here going, no, of course, we should be continuing to teach that the sun revolves around the earth. The authorities have said it. They study this all the time. It's the church. They know what they're talking about.
They know what they're talking about until they don't. I accept the idea of being challenged. I accept the idea of a college professor challenging what has come and giving them the space to do so. We have done, our entire college system has been set up to do exactly that, to challenge what has come before, to challenge what has existed, to find out what is correct and true and more true than what was before. The college system works. The education systems that we have work.
Well, when did we start talking about college?
Education.
We're talking about the system of education. We're talking about public schools.
Right, public schools should be run by people who are educated.
The spot welder who is not happy that his children are going to school and learning things he thinks are either wrong or completely useless.
Right. The spot welder is upset that the school has wokeified his children and taught them things that he doesn't trust or believe. And those people, why did the children get taught that? Because that's what the Department of Education has come up with. Why did the Department of Education come up with that? Because they're filled with college people who are
maybe they're politically motivated, or maybe, any number of reasons why they could have come up with it.
Okay, so we're putting that in. I'm putting that into the delusion. The Department of Education is full of wokeism and political motive.
It's not a fucking delusion in the first place. In the first place, are you kidding me? Every time that a Republican's in office and the Department of Education gets turned over, what's the first thing that Democrats oppose or accuse Republicans of? Oh,
religious indoctrination.
Exactly.
Political motivation.
Political
money.
Motivation. Everything. Why do you think that it wouldn't be the same way in the opposite direction? It's not a delusion. It's just what it is.
I really do think that it is a delusion because it's not full of wokeism. It's not filled with political motives. It's filled with people who want to educate children. And the Republicans don't like the answers that those educated men have come up with. The college-educated people running the Department of Education have come to a conclusion that education eliminates conservatism. I don't think that's an accident. I think that is a literal fact of nature.
I don't think so. I think that if you apply the education, in a certain direction, you can. But also I mean, give me a break.
It's not an accident that our college professors are all raging leftists. It's not an accident. That's what happens when you get educated.
No.
Yes,
No,
you move left.
It's not. I mean, if the people who are the educators are on the left, of course, then when you get educated by them, you move left. Duh.
I'm suggesting that education moves you left, not the educators.
No.
Education itself
it's not
is the reason that they do that.
The accumulation of knowledge does not move you to the left.
It does.
It doesn't.
I think that the evidence suggests that it does. I think that the are a vast majority of college professors left-leaning.
Probably.
Okay, and you think that that's?
I wouldn't say vast majority.
I would say a vast majority, but okay.
We're talking like a 60-70% type deal, not 99%.
Okay. 70. Well, let's make up a number. 65. I'm okay with that number. I'm making this number up on the spot. 65% of statistics are actually made up right on the spot. So we're going to match that and say that 65% of the college professors are left-leaning. I'm telling you that's because education moves you to the left. And you're suggesting something different. You're suggesting, if I understand correctly, that they were taught by left-leaning people, moving them to the left.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So we're going to disagree on all these delusions. I did not even think that we wouldn't. Missed an opportunity for 69. Nice. Sorry, Shinsinto.
Damn.
So we are going to disagree on these delusions. This is where we're going to disagree. These on the left, the misunderstandings, are, I think, the issues almost. And then the delusions are the positions that each side holds. And then I'm calling it fear that the Republicans are pushing. Yeah, Sewell says it's a bit of a chicken and an egg argument. Okay.
Pressing the thumbs up button will release chemicals in your human brain that will make you feel.
Climate change. I think that Donald Trump does not understand it. I
don't think anyone does.
I don't think anyone does, except for specific climatologists.
Even they don't.
Even they don't. They're supposed to. Climatologists don't understand it?
Oh,
it's their job.
They do best they can, but
they all came to a pretty solid conclusion that carbon dioxide is warming the planet.
Sure, but just for a second here, in the 80s, what was the big fear?
They did, back in the 80s, think that global cooling was going to happen.
Yes, and then in the 90s, what was the big fear?
The evidence of that was proven wrong, and then they changed their mind. That's how evidence works. In 90s, it was the
right?
In 90s, it was the hole in the ozone layer. Which
yeah, that was real though.
So that was real. the people came together to say, hey, this is a problem. This is going to burn the shit out of us if our ozone layer. So we stopped producing the chemical that was causing that.
Fluorocarbons, yeah.
Right. We stopped producing those. We changed the way we operate, and the hole in the ozone layer has mostly been repaired at this point. It is a natural thing that exists, and it repaired. And now we have the same type of people saying, hey, this carbon is in the air is going to increase our temperatures. It seems to be increasing our temperatures. We just had, I think last week, the hottest day on the planet since we started recording the planet temperature. That was like a week ago or something like that. Average wise through the entire planet, it was like the hottest day in existence since we started measuring. So it seems to be a thing that's happening. It seems to be a thing that
even that one is not even a valid argument, because when we have the coldest day on record, or when it snows in Iraq for the first time in like 100 years, everybody who's against the narrative for climate change points and goes, look, see, it's snowing in Iraq. How could it possibly be climate change? How could it possibly be that the world is getting hotter if it's doing that? That the argument for it being the hottest day on record doesn't make any sense in terms of the validity of climate change.
So those people have a delusion. The senator who goes into the literal house, the literal Capitol building, holding a snowball, and says, "How can global warming be real when I got this snowball right here? It's a Chinese hoax." He has a delusion.
Wait, how the fuck did you get the Chinese hoax from climate change? When
that is what
Chinese?
That's what Donald Trump calls it. The Chinese hoax, the climate change. It's a Chinese hoax. It's not real, folks. That is the delusion that they have. Sometimes, they have many delusions about climate change.
The best I could say for that one would be that climate change policies followed by America do hurt American industry, and because China does not follow those policies, their business thrives as a result.
Economic reason, fine. So that's a delusion. He's calling it a hoax. It's not. It's not a hoax. It's a thing that's happening, and if we want to combat it, then we need to do so economically through large manufacturing facilities and things like that. Change the way they operate, but that's bad for business, and business is what Donnie's most important, and what's most important to him. And it would cost us money, and they would lose money, and that's bad for business. So they don't do it, and so they call it a Chinese hoax. That's a delusion. If he calls it a Chinese hoax.
Call it a Chinese hoax.
Donald Trump called it a Chinese hoax.
It just
called
says
climate change a hoax. He's now awkwardly boasting about. Oh, okay. Well, a hoax invented by China.
Okay.
He's calling it a hoax invented by China. That is a delusion to cause fear, economic fear. You're going to lose money. John K., you're right. Write down on paper the arguments because they all have logical reasoning that need to be explained. You're right that the misunderstanding is where we can have the discussion, John K., in chat. We should discuss the misunderstanding, the pros and the cons of doing things for climate change. Thomas, I think you and I are doing that. You suggest that us in America doing anti-carbon capture and things like that, things to reduce climate change, are ineffective because China doesn't have to do that. And they're going to pollute the globe with all this carbon, and we're going to lose a bunch of money, and they're going to take over the economic stuff and make things worse, right? I mean, am I describing your point properly?
More or less.
Ryan DeBoer in YouTube chat says, it's not caused by man. That's a delusion, Ryan. I'm sorry. You have a delusion.
I don't think we have enough evidence to say whether it is or not, actually.
I think that's blatantly obvious. The climate scientists have suggested that it is because of our large carbon emissions created by people.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Right. So in not wanting it to be true, I think that Donald Trump has created delusions. The Republicans have created delusions that give you a sense of confidence, because I think they're con men. I think Donald Trump is a con man. He will say whatever is best for his business, whether true or not. He will create these delusions. He has created all these other delusions to give you confidence, to make you feel better, to make you have a little bit of a doubt.
65% chance of being correct.
Okay.
But if in 20 years we're talking about fucking global cooling again, then I'm going to call everyone who espouses climate change nonsense a fucking moron.
I mean, that's a change in the climate, isn't it? Climate change. I mean, is that too vague? Is that what you...
It is extremely vague. It's worthless.
Well, it causes some places to be too hot, and it causes other places to be too cold. It causes too much rain in one place and not enough in another. There are places in drought right now, and there are places being flooded. That is a change.
The climate changes all the time, regardless of our input.
Yes, it can.
My case. In which case, it's not even worth talking about. It just happens.
And how will we know that? We will need well-educated climate scientists to determine whether or not the things that are going on or going wrong are normal, expected changes in the climate that does change on its own, or if we're causing it to get worse. And that's what I think they're pushing right now. The climate scientists are suggesting that we are making things worse. Not that the climate doesn't change or it will stay the same forever. They're suggesting that all that carbon in the air is making things worse.
Sure. And I actually agree with them on that.
Okay.
I mean, regardless of the actual warming or cooling of the planet on average temperatures, the carbon in the air does make things worse. And yes, we should do things that improve that situation. But as you know, I've never been against lowering our emissions. I've always been against I've always been in favor of extracting carbon from the air and from the oceans and whatnot.
That seems fine to me. I'm not against that idea. I think, you know what, there is a device that is very, very good at removing carbon from the air. You know what it is? Trees.
Yeah, I've always been in favor of reforestation too.
And why don't we do that?
Oh.
Because everybody owns the land and it's not profitable. There's no profit in growing a bunch of trees and then cutting them down and then burying them with all that carbon. Because that would work. That would solve a lot of our carbon issues. Plant shitloads of trees. I mean, shitloads, millions and millions and millions. Cut them down with electric equipment that isn't hopefully spewing a bunch of diesel fumes into the air, and bury them. Takes the carbon out of the air, lock it into the ground. That would, but again, that all that lumber wouldn't get used, so it doesn't turn a profit. And if it's not turning a profit, it doesn't happen in America. That's all there is to it. The government can sometimes do things that are big and important that don't turn a profit. Sometimes, if it's working properly, that could be a government program.
I'm very confused by this idea of fighting climate change, of cutting the trees down. The point of the tree is to take in the carbon dioxide
and turn it into oxygen. Wood. Right. The wood is made out of carbon, right? So At some point, you take all that carbon that is in the tree, and if you leave it sitting there, it doesn't intake as much as a growing tree. A growing tree needs more carbon than a full-grown tree. Does that make sense? Because it is growing.
Got it. But so when it gets to always growing?
To some extent. I mean, there's a genetic point at which point they will stop growing. They will get to their maximum genetic size, at which point you need a smart, intelligent, college-educated botanist to tell you this. You chop them down, you bury them, then you plant a new tree. This isn't the end. You plant a new one in its place. That new young tree will take in shitloads of carbon, grow. You cut it down, you bury it. They're all producing oxygen. What? What do you mean, what?
I actually have to look into this now. Have you ever been to the redwood forests in California?
Yeah, I've got some photos of me standing under the tree that you can drive through. Can't really drive through, but if you've got a small car, you can drive through it. Not an American car these days, but different object. But yes, I've been to the redwoods.
I mean, the trees there are fucking enormous.
Yes, they are.
And it's because they were left alone for the longest time. Do those trees take in more or less carbon dioxide than a new tree that's maybe a year old?
If it's the same species of redwood, the new tree will be gobbling up as much carbon as it can to grow in size. And that takes a very long time. Once they're up and running and they get to a full size, that at some point those trees kind of stop growing. It's a genetic. It's just like humans and animals. So you get at a certain point, you stop growing up. And at that point, they do intake carbon and release oxygen, yes. But I would suspect, and this is just me rambling off the top of my head, which almost makes sense, that they would take in less carbon than one tree that is currently in the midst of growing during its growth spurts. You know what I mean? It's like teenagers who eat a shitload of food, right? They take in a shitload of calories. If I ate what my teenager eats, I would be a fat sack of shit. But him, as he is growing, he needs more calories. Is this making sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know. It's something I have to look into. It's a point of curiosity for me, not a point of contention.
Okay. So I am not a botanist. I am not a lawyer. I am not anything. I am just a goober on the internet who thinks about things too much. And at which point we could systematically, you put someone in charge of this idea. You plant them, you raise them until their maximum height, remove them, cut them down, hopefully without spewing a whole bunch of diesel fumes. Then you bury them and you plant new ones. Those new ones would be like the teenager gobbling up all the calories. And then when they're done growing, you chop them down, you bury them too, and you do it again. This would remove all the carbon. But you're spending time and energy and people power planting the things, growing the things, water for them. Then the people have to be paid to cut them down. They're not going to do that for free. The equipment has to be bought. The equipment has to be maintained. This is all money stuff. That system works in logging because you're selling the wood, right? So that is why logging is an acceptable business practice. You sell the wood at the end and you make a profit off of that wood, and then you buy new chainsaws and you pay the people to cut down the trees. It's a whole system. But if
I don't understand why
if you're not selling the wood.
Another thing that I don't understand, why wouldn't you just use the wood? Does cutting the wood release the carbon back into the air?
No, burning the wood, turning the wood into trash would release it into the air.
Well, burning it, okay, I get that, but like when you use it to, like, I don't know, build a house or, you know, a desk or something like that, why couldn't we just use the wood?
On my scale, we would have too much wood. If I were in charge of this program, it would be so large that there would be an over influx of wood product,
That'd be phenomenal, actually.
Okay, that drives the price
wood
down, sure.
The wood industry would not like it, but yes, the price
they would be unhappy
would go down
with that.
so low.
It would go down so low. But
instead of having to pay, $8 for a nice 2x4 at Home Depot, it might be, 30 cents. It'd be amazing.
And what do you do when we have enough? I'm suggesting we would get past the necessary amount of wood that we need. We are now in over abundance. We have an overabundance of that wood. What happens to it? It sits around. It goes into a landfill. It gets trashed. You buy some and then throw it away when you're done with it. It becomes if it goes into a landfill, maybe it would also be the same as burying it. But the worst case scenario would be that you burn it or you send it to some sort of incineration.
Well, right. You just make it so you can't burn it. Right. Like
so,
make it.
Yeah, housing goes down. I think this is a good idea. I know that, and maybe there's a way to use all that wood properly. But again, the logging industry does not want this. The people who are in charge of this do not want it. They would see this. What would they call this? If I brought this plan out on a presidential stage, the entire logging industry would be saying that I'm socializing or publicizing their industry. I'm attacking them. I'm harming their profits. I'm harming their business.
Well, if you could get everyone on board with the idea, then the only thing that would be really fought over between Republicans and Democrats is how the funding is achieved, right? Where the logging industry freaks out and Democrats would be like, tough shit, we're going to have public workers do this.
Right.
Or Republicans would go, okay, well, here's what we'll do. We'll subsidize the industry, and here's what your quotas are to meet those subsidy requirements.
Right. And I think you're right on the two approaches there, because those are the two approaches that I know I'm bringing it back, but there's two powers. There's a government power and there's a capitalist power. So the government power, you're right, would be the Democrats. They are more big government. They would be pushing for, hey, we're going to hire these government workers and we're going to do this and we're going to do this for the good of the people. We're going to farm these trees. We're going to bring them out and then we're going to bury them, and nobody's going to profit from it. But you're right. The Republican would be like, hey, let's use the capitalist system. Let's use capital to achieve this goal. Let's let a company do this, and they can hire the people, and they can do the work, and then they can turn a profit. I think you're right. Sules says, getting on, going into chats. I like your theory, and I thought the thought process, the actual foliage does a ton of CO2 filtering. Plant more, cut down less. That's what Sules is saying. But if the trees are built and they're up or built, if the trees are grown and they don't build the trees, if they don't need any work, then the work is gone. Then the people don't do anything, and they're not turning a profit, and we're not turning it over, and it just becomes land that is forest. Capitalism doesn't like that, because now it's not turning a profit. That has to be government land. I mean, large swaths of trees that are left alone aren't good for business usually. I mean, there's no way to turn a profit off of that, which is why I think that the profit-seeking motive will step on us. And that's what makes me worry. It's why I doubt profit-seeking motive, but that's because I'm a socialist.
Pressing the thumbs up button will release chemicals in your human brain that will make you feel.
I'm not being charitable on this one, on this document. I recognize that.
Which is why I fight you on everything.
Yeah, which is why you're fighting me on everything, because I'm not being charitable. I don't doubt that. What is the next one? Ooh, here we go. These are just the ones I came up off the top of my head. If you have one to add, I would accept it. Gender transition. I'm suggesting that Republicans do not comprehend it, they misunderstand it, and then they create delusions.
Go on.
The delusions are about 9-year-olds getting their dicks chopped off.
That would be bad.
I know, but it doesn't happen. It is a delusion. It is not happening.
I don't think that's what
they complain about.
Is it?
I listen to I don't know if you like him or not, but I hear the guy with the beard. I forget his name now. Damn it. I just watched him the other day complaining about he was a Republican talking head kind of guy. He has a YouTube channel. He's got a beard. He's very hard right wing, and he just complains about 9-year-olds getting their dicks chopped off. That's what he's talking about. He's got a delusion in his head that this is happening. The evidence suggests that it's not happening. There are, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the stats, very few people get surgery before they're 18. Very few people get the gender-affirming surgery before they're 18.
Isn't the primary drug, and we're obviously getting dicks chopped off, we're talking about male to female transition.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't the primary drug that's used for the hormone blocking and whatnot for male to female transitioners, wasn't it originally designed for chemical castration of rapists?
Well, sure. And too much penicillin will kill you. If you eat a whole bottle of aspirin right now, you die. It's a percentage kind of thing. Take two aspirin right now.
Castration drug, though.
If
you
use it for that, sure.
I mean,
and aspirin's a suicide drug if you eat it all. Aspirin's a suicide drug if you take a whole bottle. But if you take two, it'll make your head stop hurting. This is a...
that's a weird argument.
How's that a weird argument? I can kill you with a hammer, can't I? Is that what hammers are for? No. If you take too much of this drug, yes, it will chemically castrate you. If you take just a little bit, it will prevent a puberty until you're old enough to determine what you would like your life to be. The chemicals that the anesthesia drugs, if you get too much of that, you die. You go to sleep and you never wake up. It's about using it properly. Yes, the drug you're talking about in excess will cause a chemical castration that is unrepairable. But that's not what they're doing with it.
Well, then
that is a delusion that he is pushing to you.
That's not a misunderstanding of the gender transition in the first place. It's a misunderstanding of the use of the drug.
Right. They've created a delusion about the use of this drug. They misunderstand what the doctor is doing with it, and they have created a delusion that is they're using it to chemically castrate our kids. They're coming for us, folks. They're chemically castrating the kids, and they're everything that they're pushing out is the intended.
Model still just doesn't work because the misunderstanding wouldn't be on the use. It wouldn't be on gender transition itself. It'd be on the use of the drug that's used for it. That's the misunderstanding. That's not a delusion.
I think it is.
The drug itself is. It's not a delusion that drug itself is used for chemical castration. Yes, that's not delusional.
The delusion is what they're telling you that's happening with it. Gender transition is a thing that the doctor wants to do, and then Alex Jones tells you a fact that they're doing it. This is the chemical they use to castrate people. He's creating a delusion to induce fear in his audience, in the people who hear him. He wants them to be afraid that the children are being castrated.
And you could make that argument.
One of the other delusions is that someone else is choosing children's gender.
Someone else is choosing it. Okay. So yeah. So go ahead, Thomas.
Sorry, I got distracted by that text-to-speech and completely just lost my train of thought.
Okay.
One of the other delusions is that someone else is choosing children's gender. I don't know what to say about that, actually.
Someone else, that the school is grooming them into this. That you go to, you and I talk about this on occasion about the schools and the teachers and whether or not they support these ideas and changing someone's pronouns while at school, something along those lines. The delusion is that the children didn't choose this and the teachers are forcing it upon them to be woke, or that the liberal parents are forcing transition onto their kids so that they can have this, get all the woke points in the new Chinese adopted system of moral points or whatever the hell it was called. I forget what it was called. I've read that people online have said, hey, the liberals are forcing this on their children so that they can get more woke points. That's a delusion.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
If someone told you that, if you were at a bar with a guy who said, hey, the 9-year-olds are getting their dicks chopped off, and he thoroughly believed it, is that a delusion that he has?
If someone at the bar that I was talking to said that to me, then yeah, I'd be like, No.
He is delusional, but he believes it. Why does he believe it? Because, and why, and what does it lead to? So he misunderstands gender transition. He misunderstands what is happening with these transitions. He misunderstands what the doctors are doing. He misunderstands what the medicine is doing. He misunstands why anyone would do it. And the delusion that he has is that 9-year-olds are getting their dicks chopped off, and he is afraid that it's going to happen to his kids. And I think Republicans, Donald Trump specifically, is pushing this shit on purpose because it gets him votes.
I don't know. I don't think so, but go ahead.
Okay, hopping on to the next one, because I got a lot of these. We can end it or go to a different subject if we need to, but hop in the chat, tell us what you're thinking, tell us what you're feeling, tell me if I missed one. I've got a handful of them. Go to the Discord and tell us more about which one you think is or which one isn't. Feel free to go to that Discord and tell me how wrong I am. I like it. It's fun. It makes me feel things. Let's see what else we got. Sexual education probably kind of fits into this one as well. I think this gets into that parents' rights thing that we were talking about earlier. I think that spot welder that we invented doesn't understand how to educate children about sex, which is why you shouldn't ask his opinion on it. But he has the weird delusion that the school is full of groomers, because that's
no.
This is a delusion. Yes.
Stop.
School full of groomers.
Yeah, no,
that's
stop.
delusion. No.
So, for the longest time, those I guess scholars in the Department of Education that you heap praise on decided that abstinence-only education is the correct thing. Do you think it is?
When did they decide that?
That's what I was taught when growing up. We were
because
taught abstinence-only
Republicans
education.
forced it on you. They did.
Hold on.
They forced it on me too.
That came from the Department of Education, just the same way as whatever is being taught now is.
Okay, great. If we have a better system, then I accept it. I accept it then, and I say, accept the Department of Education pushing it, and if it has a better plan, if someone comes together with a better plan and a better idea, accept it from the Department of Education.
Now, hold on a second.
They're doing things to be more educated.
If the Department of Education today was still pushing abstinence-only education, would you accept it?
If they suggested that is the correct way to do it, and the Department of Education is filled with people that have figured this out and they've studied it, then I would accept it. That's science.
It's a lot of conditions.
If they had
the Department
science,
of Education says this is how we're doing it. Yes or no?
Then I'm on board with it for now. And if I
Even though
think
it's
that it is
completely
harmful, I'll suggest that we do more studies, or I'll suggest that somebody else should be elected and fill the thing with less political people. If I think that they're doing it for political reasons, I would understand being upset with it. I understand the right-wing idea that the Department of Education is filled with political wokies who absolutely do not are forcing their biases. I understand why they would be upset about that. I've yet to see any evidence that it is.
Well, because you agree with all of them.
No, because there's no evidence for it. The people in charge of the Department of Education generally want things to be good for education. This is their field of study. Just studying how to study things is complicated and difficult. I get that. But at some point, you do have to appeal to an authority, especially on education. Only on education. Maybe.
No. I think that it's perfectly reasonable to be upset about things that your child is being taught if you don't agree with them. And I also think it's perfectly reasonable to think that the education system is not working in the way that it's supposed to. I mean...
That sounds like delusion.
No. Why is it that... I was a supervisor for a group of people recently.
Sure.
I had one of them call me. We're talking about a 19, 20-year-old person. Call me to ask how to do his taxes.
Mm-hmm.
How has the education system served this individual? He hasn't, if the education system is supposed to be to make you a productive member of society, how come it doesn't teach how to do their taxes, or how to save your money, or how to spend it, or how to do a budget? None of these things are built into our education system, and I think you'll agree that they should be. So what the fuck is this Department of Education doing if not it's supposed to be creating members of society? That's what pisses me off the most, and I think most Republicans the most, about the education system is how worthless it actually is. I don't need to know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the fucking cell. It's worthless. It's useless knowledge. I need to know how to be a productive member of society, one that actually does a productive job, you know, that spends their money reasonably and knows how to manage and budget it. What are we even talking about here?
I'm
like,
on board with you.
Okay,
and all of the civics clowns, education. Did I get
all
that?
Of the clowns
in
the Department of Education.
Did you get it?
Have decided that that's not worthwhile enough to make it a thing. I mean, what's the deal here? Why are we appealing to the expertise of the Department of Education, these college-educated people and whatnot, that have decided that it's not even worthwhile to teach people how to be adults?
I didn't get any of that. I went to school. I graduated in the year 2000. Long time ago, I know. I didn't get taught how to do my taxes either. I lived in a red state. I lived in the reddest state. They didn't teach me any of that shit. They didn't teach me any of that shit.
I'm not even suggesting that the Republicans have done the right thing with education. What I'm suggesting is that the education system sucks, and the things that the Department of Education has decided are important to teach our children are worthless. I mean, the DOE
got my point. That's exactly what I'm coming to. The Republic.
What I'm doing here is I'm challenging the authority of the Department of Education itself.
Okay.
Which is actually exactly what the other Republicans do, but in a different way. I don't think that the college-educated Department of Education people are making the correct choices. And I'm not college-educated, and you can tell me that I'm just fucking wrong. But I think that my opinion of what children should be taught in schools is correct. And
everybody thinks
I think that they're just wrong.
Everybody thinks that their opinion is correct. Nobody runs around thinking I'm wrong all of the time. Everybody thinks
except
that
you agree with me. So
I agree with you about the civics part. I agree with you that ought to be pointed in a better direction. John Kay in YouTube chat, which isn't showing up on screen, I'm not entirely sure why, is suggesting that it's the TurboTax lobby that doesn't want children to learn those things, and that goes back to capitalism. But I agree that the Department of Education should be making decisions how best to educate children. At some point, you have to make an appeal to expertise. I think they're experts at educating children, and that's why I'm appealing to them. They are experts, and appeal to expert, I know, is a thing, is its own fallacy. I recognize that.
Well, they've decided that it's not worthwhile to learn how to be an adult, and
the flip flopping back and forth between extremes
there, I mean,
that we've had over the past 20 years are causing that.
They definitely don't need to know how to do their taxes by the time they leave high school. So
education is a complicated thing.
Listen to what they have to say.
The states fight against the DHS all the time, don't they? And the parents fight against the schools and against the DHS. It's a fucking battleground, and it will be different next year than it was last year. No, yeah, the DOE will have different people involved. The state laws will change all the time. It's a battlefield between state laws and what's required and what's not. The states sue the DOE all the time. The DOE changes every 4 years depending on the president. The people get different ideas of what they want their kids to learn. You have a good idea, and if it's not being taught, it should be. How do we make that happen? It's complicated and it's difficult. It's one of the most difficult things that I think exist within our country at the moment.
Sure. And so the point I'm making here is we both, at the very least, agree on something that our schools should be teaching.
Sure.
That they are currently not teaching. And neither of us are experts in the field. What I'm saying is, why is it, do you think, that our opinions are less valid than somebody who works in the Department of Education?
Because we haven't been trained and educated on how to educate people. We are not experts. My opinion is less important and less valid. My opinion is less valid than someone who has gone to college to learn how to educate children. Yes, I accept that.
Again, though, learning how to educate children and deciding what they should be educated on are two entirely separate things.
Wait, say that again?
Sorry,
I was reading chat.
Said learning how to educate children and deciding what children should be educated on are two entirely separate things.
How are those separate things? They're hand in hand.
No, they're completely different.
How to educate children and what they should learn fit hand in glove.
No. How to educate children is the methods, the techniques, like any number of things. Like, how do you get them to listen to you? How do you get children to pay attention? What methods and what techniques should you use to
will that differ by
get
age?
them to? Yes, it will.
Okay, great. You know what else
Those
differs by
things definitely
age?
differ, but the other
amount of
question
math
is
you teach them differs by age.
what?
You can't have kindergartners doing long division, right? They can't comprehend it, so you have to build up to it. So what you teach them goes right along with how you teach them. These are hand in glove. Their Venn diagrams almost entirely cover each other. I mean, like 80-90%.
I don't think so. Coverage. Maybe it's 50-50. But what you teach them, no, because when you get to maybe at the very beginning, right, when you're talking about division, okay, this is basic math skills. You get into middle school, high school levels, and now you're talking about soft sciences and whatnot. What soft sciences do we need to teach them? What hard sciences do we need to teach them? Does every student need to take a biology class?
All very important questions that the Department of Education should be answering.
I don't think that the being college educated and how to teach students is even a qualifier in terms of deciding what we teach them.
That all comes to the same place. How and what and why all, I think, fit within the Department of Education.
Hold on,
all of it. I wouldn't take the welder's opinion on any of those things over someone who works at the Department of Education and has a degree in childhood education.
Oh, I would certainly take any teacher's opinion on how to teach students.
But not what
over
and why?
The welders, but not what.
I don't know why you would separate those. I really don't. I can't even... that's why I'm having so much difficulty understanding. I can't comprehend why you would separate them.
Why wouldn't you? They're two separate questions.
They're it's a glove with 5 fingers, and you got a hand with 5 fingers. They go together. They're made for each other.
There's a reason why we've separated the basic categories of questions: who, what, when, where, how, and why.
Sure.
Right. All your W's and then
and
the how.
And a reporter does all of them. Like, would you have a reporter who only does the what, and then a different reporter who does the how? That doesn't make any sense. They all go together. They all fit together. They all make up the same job. They're all doing the same thing. They're all pushing the same way.
So they're not.
Let me
because
make
sure. I'm sure that you have plenty of God damn it. So Nazi Germany had plenty of qualified educators who knew how to teach the students, right?
Maybe they did. Okay, it's the 1920s.
Okay, so you can know how to teach a student, but what were they teaching those students? That's kind of the problem, isn't it?
If they were pushing propaganda, then I would ask, why are you pushing that propaganda? All of this goes together. And it wasn't... I wouldn't suggest that the Nazi movement was an educated, well-reasoned
well, what I'm suggesting is
ideology.
That people who are educators who've gone through college to learn how to educate learned how to educate. They didn't learn what it is that
yes,
makes
they did.
it so, like
yes, they did.
No, they didn't learn what to educate. They absolutely did not.
They did. They learned how, what, why, when, and where. That is part of becoming an educator. And the person who's got this fancy degree and running the DOE properly, under my suggestion, would know how, what, when, where, and why to educate children.
I totally disagree with you.
In an ideal world, yes. So do I have a delusion right now? Do you think
I think you do.
I have a misunderstanding and a delusion?
Probably.
And then that causes what? Fear in the liberals. So you're suggesting that I have a misunderstanding of how education works and how those degrees work, and now I have a delusion that it's run by these experts. Am I delusional in suggesting that it's okay if you say yes? I don't mind. Am I delusional when I say that the Department of Education, properly run, is filled with experts who know how, when, why, and where to educate children?
That's an idealization. It's not a delusion when you make a suggestion that that's the ideal situation.
Okay.
It's,
well, what if I said
delusion
that it does
that
happen?
we are currently in an ideal situation?
Okay,
no,
it's
we're
a
not.
Delusion that it's happening right now.
Again, and if I bring it back to what Shinshinso's saying here, you have to have a specialization to teach specific subjects. Okay. How about a teacher in Nazi Germany with a specialization to teach how Jews have ruined the world?
Well, that person
they've got a specialization,
special. Their ideology has been pushed upon them, and they're pushing a propaganda. Sure, that person should be,
so it is
and
a
was
possibility,
argued
and
with by other academics.
And under the criteria you've given me in terms of your appeal to authority here, that person would be perfectly valid in terms of determining not only how the children are educated, but what we're teaching them, and they would be teaching them wrong shit. You have to adjust the criteria for who we're choosing here.
Yes, we have
and
to adjust
there
the criteria
is an ideal we should be striving for.
Propaganda. Yes, we adjust the criteria all the time. We adjust criteria every 5 minutes. The Department of Education should be adjusting criteria. Every time they find new evidence, they should adjust the criteria. They should adjust what's happening there. And I want that to be run by well-educated people. I don't think that the Republican line is what you're talking about. You and I are having a discussion 3 levels above the common, normal
What we're having
Republican.
a discussion about is the validity of the spot welder's opinion on what their children are being educated on.
I have very little respect for his opinion on what his children are being educated on, because he's not an educator.
And I have a great deal of respect for his opinion on what his children should be educated on, because they're his children, and it's his job to raise them, which he is doing, which obviously
sending them to a school.
He's concerned about the things that are being taught at the school that he sent them to. Right? To me, that's the markers of a good parent right there.
Concerned with the things that they're being taught.
Involved in their life, right?
And he goes to a school board meeting to do what? Say that it's the incorrect thing to be taught? They shouldn't be taught this factual thing? Or is he saying that it's not factual? Is he saying that there's this... what is he saying?
He doesn't believe the things that are taught are factual. Or maybe he doesn't think that they're useful. Or maybe he thinks that they're actively detrimental to their child's behavior and growth and mental development.
So there's a delusion somewhere, either between him or the educators. The delusion exists. The delusion exists.
A delusion...
It's either him being delusional about what he thinks he knows, or it's him being correct. Let's say he's correct. There's a delusion on the educator side, saying this is what is correct. This framework works from both sides.
So, first of all, the idea of a delusion requires evidence to the contrary in the first place. So
delusions can just be invented.
No.
Yeah.
They can't.
They can.
You can be
it's
wrong
a delusion.
No.
I can think about pink elephants right now. I can delude myself to think about pink elephant. I'm not. There's nothing pink and there's nothing elephant in my room.
Delusions require evidence to the contrary, by definition.
Absolutely not. I don't think so.
You're delusional then.
Evidence to the contrary of what? Let's go back to the very easiest one. Are schools full of groomers?
No.
Okay, great. Why do they tell me that on fucking Fox News every goddamn day? Why do they tell me that? Yes, they do. They tell me that school is full of groomers. They tell me that. Why are they telling me that? Because they're delusional. I think my
definition of delusion. 1 second.
You look that up, but I'm going to talk to the camera for a moment. I think that YouTube chat is not appearing on screen. I apologize, guys. I don't know why that is. It's on YouTube side. It was appearing, then it stopped. Also, my stream looks like it's restarted on YouTube. I don't know what the hell that's about. Let me go to my YouTube link over here and see what it looks like. It looks like I'm fine. Something about my monitoring software isn't working properly. So I apologize for everybody for YouTube hiccups. Blame YouTube.
Merriam-Webster, a delusion is a false or misleading belief that persists despite evidence to the contrary.
I accept that definition and think that it fits within what I'm drawing here. School is full of groomers.
I would agree that that's not a true statement, and if people did believe that, I don't think that
they do. They're screaming bloody murder about it. They're talking about how sex education is just grooming their children into being trans and being gay. That's what they're talking about. This is why they want those parental rights. They're not arguing about parental rights about math. They're not. Well, some of them are with the fucking Common Core, but because you do math differently under Common Core. But
okay, the argument is that school is full of groomers.
And
now there's evidence to the contrary to make it a delusion.
Right, it's a delusion that school is full of groomers.
I said now. Hold on. To make it a delusion, You have to present evidence to the contrary.
Okay, they're not. The sexual education has always existed. Sexual education has happened in most schools for a very long time. Where's the evidence that they're groomers? There's not any. Sex ed is not grooming your children. I am being very vague here, but I could find a study for it if you'd like. But what I didn't come prepared for in every individual thing, I came for, at the moment, the misunderstanding, the delusion, the fear.
Yeah, I mean, you came prepared for, what did you call it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago? Short, pithy, wrong?
Short, pithy, wrong. Am I being short, pithy, wrong? I think I'm being short, pithy, right. But if you would like to suggest, and you're making a good point here, debate is about short, pithy, wrong. Is there a way for us to figure this out and nail it down? Yes. We can look at studies. We can go into the things and find studies and how much sexual education is or isn't a good thing. And that would not be short. It would take a long time. It would not be pithy. And maybe one of us would be turning out right. So you are true. You are correct. I am doing a debate tactic right now.
Fair enough.
And I think that school full of groomers is also short, pithy, wrong. And I'm suggesting that it's not full of groomers, that they are over-exaggerating. Oh. They are talking about things that are not true.
I think school is full of groomers is in the first place a mischaracterization of the sentiment about education in general from Republicans. I don't think that's accurate at all. I think that's short, pithy, and wrong in and of itself. Not just sexual education, but education overall.
That Republicans don't think that schools are full of groomers? Or that I'm mischaracterizing their position? Am I mischaracterizing their position? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, yeah, I don't think that Republicans think that schools are full of groomers. And
then what are they doing the parental rights about? What are they screaming about at these PTA meetings? It's almost always sex.
Okay.
And gayness and transition, which is part of sex education.
If their complaint was about school overall, like, I mean, most of these parents, they see something from like their homework or something like that, where the parents are like, what the fuck? What are you putting into my kid's head? And that's when they go to the school district. Mm-hmm. And even if that homework was created by one school teacher out of the 150 that work at a typical school with 2,000 students, I mean, that's one teacher that they go to complain about. They're not like, the average student has 7 different teachers when you talk about their middle school and high school experience. I agree with you. The idea, I mean, if you're complaining about one teacher when you go to the town hall meetings or one piece of homework from a particular teacher, you're complaining about the teacher. You're not. The schools being full of groomers idea is an absolutely ridiculous idea. The idea that they're going against the Department of Education overall, rather than they're going against an individual teacher that they disagree with on something, and to their credit, that teacher may be overstepping their bounds, even though they're college educated on how to teach. It's there.
That's
and I mean,
I'm not arguing any of those points. That's not what is put onto the TV. That's not what's on Twitter. That's not what's on Facebook. That's not what they're saying in real life. What they're saying in real life, what Donald Trump is saying, is that they're teaching woke. They're not teaching anything anymore. Only wokeism, only gay, only trans, and the groomers are in the schools tricking your kids into being trans and gay. That's what they're saying on the stump. That's what bothers me. You're pointing out good things and intelligent thought processes. That's not what's making it to the TV. That's not what's making it to the people. What's making it to the people
what makes it to the TV
is a delusion, a propagandic delusion that's making it to the people. And I apologize to John K.
That's how it works on everything, though.
Well, then I hate everything.
Well, I mean, let's take a similar tack for a second. George Floyd, not a great guy. Pointed a gun at a pregnant woman's belly.
I don't want to drag that whole thing back to that. Is that
hold on a second. I'm making a point.
You can make. Okay, all right, fine.
Went. He was on drugs. Used a fake note. Probably died as a result of complications from his drug use. And yes, the officer was negligent and did go to jail for being negligent, but the death was most likely drugs. And what happened in the media? It wasn't.
The news reported it poorly.
Well, the news reported it poorly, but what did we get out of that, right? It was, we had a resurgence of the Black Lives Matter and
yes, people
all
protested.
That. It's the police are
unhappy,
violent and unhinged criminals and whatnot. I'm saying is this shit happens on every side.
My man, listen. Yes, it was a very famous case that did riots. Is this the only thing they had to complain about with the police? Did the black community have only one thing to complain about, and it was George Floyd? No, they had decades of complaints. They had decades of harassment. They had decades of unhappiness that you didn't hear about because I'm not a part of you're not a part of their community, and neither am I. But when they said, "Hey, we've got decades of things to complain about," and they start the BLM protests, that was one of the things that they pointed to. Yes. Did the news report that poorly? Yes.
Okay. So an overall grievance.
Yes, a large one, decades old, maybe even 100 years old.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Okay.
I'm making the point that what you're suggesting is a Republican thing is something that is actually just happening.
So they had a delusion. I would accept that fact. I would accept that. On to the explanation here. Feel free to make a Democrat delusion thing, and we can discuss that. Absolutely. It's misunderstanding what happened to him, a delusion about hands up, don't shoot. That's a delusion according to you, and then a fear.
It is.
That the police are going to come and get you. MDF. It is I'm suggesting that this is the thought process, and I accept the idea that it goes the other direction. This MDF thing that I'm saying works on both sides.
I don't think it does. I mean, when it comes to making political changes, you have to appeal to just the dumbest people. Unfortunately,
you don't have to.
That's just what it is. Yeah, of course
you can convince them through facts and logic and intelligent thought. You can explain things in a good way if you're not fighting against fake populist propaganda. I think we could be more about issues if we weren't surrounded by school is full of groomers.
That last condition you put, I mean, when you're not fighting against fake populist propaganda, I mean,
right?
Come on.
Yes, Donald Trump is fake populist propaganda.
With a contentious situation here.
Does Donald Trump
it's the person that can communicate their message most effectively is the one that's going to get the votes.
And even if that message is entirely fiction, he made up that bit about the psychiatrist sitting there reading a newspaper because he didn't have any work to do. He made that up. Is that an acceptable use of his? Do you accept that as, hey, that's just what we have to do to get the stupid people on board?
I mean, yeah.
That's just a religion. That's a fucking cult you're describing. The priests 1,000 years ago knew that it was wrong for people to steal because it harms our society. And instead of explaining to the unwashed masses, the idiots, how you shouldn't steal, they made up Sky Wizard. They made up a
I literally made that argument.
Right.
Like, what was it? Last week? 2 weeks ago?
Donald Trump is the head of our new cult. I don't like that. I hate that. In fact, he is the new head priest of the cult. He gives you fiction. The fiction convinces the unwashed masses, according to you, to follow him and do what is best for our society. He is the head of a cult. How is his?
It's not a cult.
It's exactly a cult. Absolutely, it is. Yeah, deep breath. Sorry, John.
Back to the parents' job. Parents' job to teach their children on how to do their taxes or educate them on sex. Yes, that is the parents' job, and I do think that the parents should have a great deal of say in that education. And what is being suggested here, and it almost has to happen at this point, is that schools teach these things. Because unfortunately, the family structure in America has degraded to the point where we don't have cohesive families in a lot of cases. Like something like 60% of marriages are now ending in divorce and whatnot, and there's a lot of children in broken homes. So the school is what we have created that now has to pick up the slack, and it's not doing that. So yes, it should be the parents' job to teach their children how to do their taxes or to educate, because they're not there. Or
no, I mean,
maybe
the school isn't doing that. Right? The school isn't teaching the children properly. Why?
Oh, well, because those experts you were talking about decided it wasn't important.
I think that's entirely backward. I think it's because the Republicans have removed funding. It is difficult to... Most teachers aren't paid properly. They're paid way too little. The Republicans want that. They want this. This is my conspiracy theory. And you can MDF me on that one. I have a misunderstanding of how school works. So I have a delusion that Republicans are intentionally defunding them. And my fear is that they're doing that intentionally so that they can make a profit on private schools. You can MDF me too. Because when I go to Republicans and look at their education plans, what are they? What are the education plans that Republican politicians are pushing?
Education plans Republican politicians are pushing. I don't actually know.
Private schools, vouchers, taking money away from public schools and giving it to private institutions. That is what they're pushing. That is the direction they're going. And the way they get there is by convincing that welder that we talked about that the school is full of wokies, that it's teaching his children to be gay, that it's grooming them into being trans, and that those public school teachers are hiding gender transition from their parents. That is what the Republicans push. That is what they push on Republican media every day. And I think that is a delusion. It is a lie so that they can make more money. As always, I think all of our arguments, all of our discussions, all of the problems we have in this country fall back to capitalism and money.
Oh, I totally disagree.
Republicans want that money. They want that tax coming in from the people going into their pocket. And they can get that if they own the schools, if they own stock in the schools, if they are a member of that private school board. They can skim a little bit off the top. It's similar to insurance. And religious indoctrination. Shinto brings up a good point. Religious indoctrination. There are a bunch of people who do not want the people going to public school because they want religious indoctrination.
Wait, what?
The other Republican talking point.
I don't think that the comparison between insurance and schooling is reasonable or accurate at all.
Between private schooling, sure it is.
No, not at all. And the reason for that is because insurance. The way that insurance is structured is that the argument in favor of a public insurance is that you massively expand your risk pool. Mm-hmm. Whereas the idea of a risk pool...
Everybody pays in, yeah?
The idea of it's just how insurance works. It's the idea of a risk pool does not exist when it comes to public schools, so the argument does not work. There's no risk pool in education.
If you get X amount of dollars per student, would you get 10 times the money with 10 more students? With 10 more students, you would get 10 more government bucks. And the more students you have, so you're increasing your pool. You're increasing your the people coming in. You're increasing your money.
No, this is a misunderstanding on your part.
Okay.
So
I've got a delusion.
We got to talk about insurance sometime, but the comparison between education and insurance when it comes to whether we should publicize or privatize it is an entirely different discussion. Like
I will give you my delusion then, right here and now. My misunderstanding, according to you, is that I don't understand how a school or insurance or school works. And my delusion is that the people who want money want more people in those systems so they can make more money. If you own a private school, you turn a profit. You put that money in your pocket. And if there are 100 more students tomorrow, you get more profit. If there's 1,000 more students tomorrow, you get more profit. Same for insurance. The people owning it are skimming. And they skim because they want profit. And how do they get more profit? Either by increasing the people or lowering the quality. That is, I think, true for schools and insurance. This is the part that I was comparing them to. The owners skim, and if they want more, they have to lower the quality or increase the number of people involved.
No. I think that, the insurance and education arguments, they couldn't possibly be conflated because of the nature of those markets, where we want everyone to be educated, and it is beneficial to them to be educated.
I want everybody to be covered by insurance, yes.
Oh, that's silly.
I want everybody to have health care. And if we have to do it through insurance by everybody paying in when they're healthy and then only using it when they're sick, that makes sense to me. And if I am the CEO of the insurance company, how do I get more money? I am an insurance company, and I have stock, and I have a board of directors and board of investors who want more money this year than last. How do I get it?
You have more people pay to the system.
Or I lower
or you spend
the
less,
quality. Right. That's what I'm suggesting will happen with private schools. Private schools will have an owner and a board of investors who demand more money this year than last. And the only way to do that will be to increase the number of people in the private schools or to lower the quality or to cut costs somewhere. That is what I'm suggesting is going to happen to private schools. That's why I don't like private schools. I think it's a terrible idea.
Okay, I get that. And I think that your argument here is that, Republicans want to eliminate public school entirely?
Yes, they eventually. They don't often say that. They suggest pushing for shifting, generally, all of that tax money that the taxpayers pay and give that to the private school rather than the public school. This is a very common Republican thing they do at the state level. They take the amount of money that is gathered from the taxes. They are supposed to give it to the public school, but these private schools have convinced them some of that should go to us. And they then back the Republican Party. The Republicans talk about vouchers and school choice. Why are they pushing school choice and vouchers?
Well, I would agree with pushing school choice.
Why?
Why shouldn't you be allowed to choose what school your child goes to?
And you're allowed to choose to go to a private school.
Okay, you're allowed to choose to go to a private school.
Which charges money.
But, well,
some of us don't have money. Some of us are lacking money, in fact.
I get that, and just stop for a second,
okay,
because I'm going to give a personal anecdote.
Mm-hmm.
My childhood, my family sort of came up over time as I was growing up. We were very poor when I was young, and my dad was going through college and whatnot, and eventually started making a good bit more money than he used to, and we were able to move into a better housing area. And unfortunately, schools are based on zones,
mm-hmm,
right? And in order to capture an accurate the correct amount of money for a given school, the plans for school zones in my area were redesigned to where I would have gone to a higher quality school at the time, but when the school zone was redrawn so that they could capture the correct amount of money for another one, I went to a lower quality school, which I don't think was fair. But they then introduced the idea of school choice about 3 years later, so too late for me, but my siblings got to go to the better school. Why would you deny parents the opportunity to use school choice to go to a better school if they determine that school to be better? And I might be wrong that the school that I wanted to go to is better. They're all public schools, but school choice is a good thing. I mean, and if the parents are involved and want their children to do well, then they should be allowed to send their children to a school that's 45 minutes or an hour away instead of the one that's 15 minutes away that they think isn't as good.
I recognize the idea of freedom of choice. When it comes to the schools like that, they're paid per student. The middle income, people with more, privilege. I know that's not a good word to a lot of people, but if you are middle income and can take your child an hour away to a better school, that is a privilege that the poor people do not have. Poor people don't get to choose what time they show up for work. If they show up 15 minutes late because they had to drop their kid off at the school, they're canned. They lose their job. The poorest among us will be hurt by school choice. The middle income people will leave that poor school. That school now has fewer people. It gets fewer tax dollars. It can afford fewer teachers. And the only people that are left there are the poor. They cannot drive an extra hour in the morning to get their kids to school because they have jobs. They cannot afford to hire an Uber or somebody to drive them over there because they don't have any money.
That's fine. And I've thought about that problem before too.
You will create bad schools with few poor people that cannot function, and then and that will end badly. This all needs to be weighed and measured. The X and V is asking about the vouchers. And I'll bring that in there too. If you're leaving this public school to go to a private school, you're taking your tax dollars and giving it to a private company that's keeping some of that money for themselves.
Actually, no.
In their pocket. They're not non-profit.
Right now,
organizations.
if you're paying to go to a private school, you're still paying the property taxes.
Yeah, you're paying twice.
Exactly, you're paying twice.
That's a privilege that poor people can't do. They can't afford that. They can't afford to pay twice, so they don't go to those better schools. All schools should be good, and all of them should be equal. All of them should get
well,
money
then
per
maybe you'll
student.
agree with what my idea on education is. I don't think that the schools should have zones, and the property taxes in a given state should be distributed equally between schools. What do you think of that?
I'm fine with the idea of the property tax being distributed equally. I think that's a good idea. That is equality. Republicans generally dislike that idea. I think that's a good idea. Zones.
Oh no, Republicans love equality.
I don't know. They complain about
do.
DEI all the time. I'm going to put DEI on the list next.
No.
Okay.
Does DEI stand for diversity, equality, and inclusion? It doesn't, because the E stands for equity, and equity and equality are two completely different things, and equity can go fuck itself.
Okay. Anyway, let's not jump into that pool yet. We're talking about school. I'm on board with you for all of the tax money is distributed evenly per number of students. But if we do that, wouldn't the choice of taking your child out of that poor performing school to a better one lower the amount of money that poor performing school is doing? So they have fewer students because they suck, and now the ones who are stuck there and cannot escape are given almost nothing. It creates a class distinction. This is classism, because I'm a Marxist. This creates a class of where did you go to one of those shitty little schools? Well, then you didn't get educated properly, and you can't apply to jobs, and they won't take you because of your zip code, and you can't escape. It creates ghettos, honestly. School choice creates ghettos that cannot be escaped from on the long term. This is a 20, 30, 40 year fucking scope that I'm looking at.
I think that's an interesting speculation. I don't agree, but I mean, I can't prove it either direction. So.
Okay, great. Neither can I.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
So I don't want the Republicans pushing the idea of these private schools, because that takes money away from the public schools. It makes the public schools worse, and it makes the middle income people able to leave, and then that double whammies that public school. That public school will fail. This is an insidious plot by Republicans to make more money.
I think that you have
those
to.
Schools. They run those schools for profit, and they become board members on those schools. And just like colleges, is college a money-making? Is a college a money-making operation? It is a business, right?
A lot of them are, yeah. But
okay, I don't want that to happen to 9th grade. I don't want that to happen to 4th grade. I don't want 4th grade to be a economic business.
I get that, but I mean, you're talking about two different things. I argued in favor of school choice, which I think is a good idea, a great idea even. And then the other one you're talking about is vouchers and going to private schools and whatnot.
Right. That's a Republican idea on how to counter
the suggestion
my
that
argument.
The suggestion that it's an idea that's born out of malice is interesting. I don't think it's born out of malice at all. I think that it's born out of the idea that private schools, when we talk about the outcomes for students that go to them, are superior. The problem with that I'll admit and address is that the outcomes are better for those people because they are more positively influenced by the fact that their family can afford a private school.
Okay, we would have to see
money,
right? The
when it
teachers
comes
at the
when it
private
comes to
schools
the
are paid more.
When it comes to the vouchers, you would have to see if in a system where those vouchers existed, did that improve the overall metrics for a given community, right? Like, did the outcomes improve or not? And at what point isn't the voucher just a subsidy for the school, basically?
The voucher is a poor person saying, I cannot afford to send my son to the good school. So government, please help me. And so the government pays for that child to go to the good school instead of the poorly performing school.
Okay.
That proves that poorly performing school should be defunded and underfunded. And the people who are pushing school vouchers, well, if it fails and all the people are leaving and the government has to pay the people to go to that better school, it makes the public school worse and worse and worse and worse. It gets worse if all the people leave because they don't get any money. It makes it worse if the people get the vouchers to go to the better school because now that tax money isn't going to that school, that poor performing school. It's going to a better performing school. And those vouchers are just government money going into the pockets of the people for profit at the for-profit school. It's a Republican almost a what's the word?
Compromise.
Compromise. It's almost a compromise. The expensive schools get better results. You're right. They do. They have more money. They get the tax money. They get the enrollment money from the parents, and they pay their teachers more. The kids come out better. Everybody wants to go there. The Republicans push the idea of these schools, sometimes because they're making a profit, sometimes because they're religious fanatics. That makes the public schools suffer. What do the people, the poor people in that public school do? They clamor to the government and say, hey, help us. We want to go to the good school too. And so the government takes the money from the public school and gives it to the private school. That's why I don't trust vouchers. Vouchers are insidious.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Well, if you want my opinion, or my personal plan, when President Thomas or President candidate Thomas is running, teachers should be paid probably around 90 to 100K a year.
Okay.
Instead of like the 40 or 50 they're making now.
I agree. Okay.
And if you did that, what that does is actually it drives a certain amount of people who otherwise wouldn't be teachers to become teachers. And they might be very good at what they do, and they might be very good teachers, but no one's doing that at 50K a year.
I agree. The private schools pay way better.
They do. That's why they have better performance.
So that leads those better teachers to go there, and it leads the underperformers to stick around in the public system. This is an insidious plot, man. I'm putting on my red light.
So there's basically two options. You either do the vouchers and do the private schools for profit that pay teachers a great deal of money to go teach and they're actually good at their jobs, or you increase the amount of money that you pay to public school teachers to an acceptable range for someone in their field. You're not going to pay a person with a master's in math 50K. Sorry, they're not going to go teach unless they can't do something else in their field.
Right.
And you pay teachers enough, and suddenly you have an influx of people that want to be teachers. There's no teacher shortage, and guess what? You can start to impose standards, and standards are the thing that the teachers union is so against. But when you have an influx of labor, it kind of busts the power of unions in the first place. So you can enforce standards, you have more teachers, they're better at their jobs, you can get rid of bad ones because there are people to replace them. Yeah, the whole idea here is to put more money into the education system.
I can agree with that. Now, do you trust the market to do that?
Yes.
I don't. That's not a surprise to you. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody who's ever listened to me talk. I don't trust the market to do that. I think the government has to do that because the market will do what I think the private school system we've got now, the college system we've got now, is all because of the private market, the private people making the money.
You can't. No. Public, you got to separate the college from the public schools because
college from public schools is different. College and public schools are different. I'm calling college and private elementary schools the exact same. They're businesses who run for profit, and that is the problem I think we have. And I think that people who make money from colleges want to also make money from 12th grade. Wouldn't that make sense? If you're running a college right now and you want to increase your profit, you either have to have more people or you have to cut something. So you have more people by including 12th grade and maybe 11th, maybe 10th, maybe 9th. Maybe your company expands to take all 4 of the years of the high school and also take the tax money and take the tuition and then take the money from the vouchers.
I see what you're saying.
Increase in your business.
I
That
have
is
a few points of
capitalist
contention,
issue. Okay.
but I do have to use the rest
Yeah,
of them
yeah. Okay.
quick, so I'll be right back.
I'll do the regular stuff. Hi, X and V. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. It's very nice of you. Thanks, guys, in YouTube chat. You can't see it on screen right now, but I am reading it, and Thomas is reading it as well. Sewell says, if you want school choice, pay for private school. Yeah, and I think private schools shouldn't exist. This is just my opinion. I don't think private schools should exist at all. Even private colleges. They are the source of the problem. Running these education for profit is a problem. Education, being paid to educate people, is acceptable, but running a business for profit is the problem that I have with it. Blame not malice when ignorance will do. I know, Sules, I know what you're saying. Maybe it's just all the Republicans want more money, so they support the thing that gets them more money. And from my point of view, that's malice. That's dangerous. They're doing it on purpose to get more money, and that is harming us. I agree with Sewells agrees with Thomas's stance and reasoning for increasing teachers' pay. We all want teachers to be paid more. How do we do the pay? How do we increase that pay? Either we tax people more, or the company pays them, and then that company at the private institution, the private ninth grade, wants to pay people more. They have to increase the amount of money that's coming in. They have to take more from the people. How do we take that money from the people is difficult and painful for everybody. X and V, diversity in education is what allows education to improve. I agree with you, and I think that that's a good thing, but I don't think that Republicans are doing it for a diverse reason. I think they're doing it so that they can make more money. On an individual level, maybe I'm assigning them too much malice. Maybe I am giving them too much malice for what they're doing, which is just trying to make more money for themselves. Everybody wants more money. It benefits me to do a loophole on my taxes. Makes me more money. But if 320 million people also do that loophole, then the government isn't funded properly, and then they can't build new roads, and then we all suffer. It's a collective versus an individual issue that is very difficult to nail down. Education is the most complex issue that our country has, because it's filled with pitfalls. It's filled with individual stories. We've all been educated, to some extent, some of us more than others. I've never gone to college, and because I think it's a scam. From an early age, I saw the idea of them paying a shitload of money and taking out all these loans to go to college as a scam, so I didn't do it. I think we have gone on and on and on about education quite a lot.
College is a scam.
College is a scam. I agree. Do you think so too?
Yes.
And we're both coming to that conclusion from a different direction. I'm coming from the left saying, hey, college is a scam, and you're coming from the right saying college is a scam. I'm glad we agree on that, but probably for different reasons. Academia is a scam, education isn't, according to X and V. Okay. I can agree with that to some extent as well. The other thing that I came up with, and feel free to make one of these for me, the left misunderstands the economy. Absolutely. And then they have delusions about the economy, and then they spread fear about that economy. Entirely possible, entirely acceptable. DEI. I'm going to suggest that the Republicans don't know what it is. They misunderstand it, they exaggerate it, and they create 1,000 delusions about it.
Well, I would say that in terms of when it comes to DEI, what is the overarching sentiment? Well, it's exactly what I said earlier. Diversity and inclusion are fine, generally speaking. Equity is where we have a tension, I think.
Right.
I don't agree with equity. I agree with equality.
Okay.
Not equity.
Okay.
So I believe in equality of opportunity. I don't believe in equity of outcome.
The outcome is the part that you're adding that the left isn't. They're not adding.
Well, equity is the outcome. Equity is literally
making sure that people
by definition
get
the outcome.
That people get what they need from each of their ability to each for their need. There was that's equity. That is. Oh, I'm sorry. I was adding this. I didn't have it on the right screen. There was a silly little webcomic, and it was probably some HR person. And I wish I had still had it. I'm probably going to have to draw it since I can't find the damn thing online. It was 3 people looking over a fence to watch a baseball game. Okay? You've got a tall guy who sees over the fence. You've got a short guy who's just under the fence, can't see what's on the other side of it. And then you've got a really short person who can't see anything but the fence. So we have a diversity there. So if you want equality each of them would get one box to stand on. The one box for the first guy is too much. He doesn't need any boxes. The second guy needs one box, and the third guy actually needs two boxes. Equity is giving people what they need to accomplish what our goal is. The tall guy doesn't get any boxes. The medium guy gets one box, and the short guy gets two boxes. Is that equitable? No. One guy's getting two, and one guy's getting none. Is it is it equal? No. Is it equal? No. Is it equitable? Yes. And that's why I accept the idea, is that to each their need. If I don't need unemployment insurance, then I don't get the benefit. If I do need it, then I'll get it.
I understand the argument, and I've seen that same picture or comic or whatever you would call it before, but I think that's an oversimplification of the human experience in the first place. Also, all three of those fucking freeloaders should have paid for a ticket and gotten into the stadium.
It was a free, open, freelance. They didn't pay. There were no tickets.
So, I mean, equality and equity. I appreciate equality, where you all start from the same general opportunity starting point, but it's about how hard you work. And by the way,
how lucky you got.
Comic.
That's the. I think
hold
the part
on a second.
Everybody, all Republicans leave that part out.
What'd you say?
How lucky you get.
Oh, how lucky you get. Okay.
Hard work and luck are required for success in our fucking country. Not just hard work. There are hard-working motherfuckers in our country right now who are poor as shit because they weren't lucky enough to be born in the right place. They weren't lucky enough to be part of a educated properly.
Luck might be a component. Okay, I see what you're saying. What about so here's an interesting part of your the picture we're talking about, and you might as well just find it and pull it up at this point.
I'll give it a shot. Yeah.
That picture suggests, at the very least, that's the one.
I did find it immediately.
That was instant. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Last time I went looking for this, I couldn't find the damn thing.
That picture suggests, without I think even realizing it, they don't even get it.
They don't get it. Okay.
The person that made this doesn't even understand what they've done here. Is that they've implied a genetic component to success. Look at the heights of those people.
A genetic component. He could just be a child. Yep. He's just too young to see it. This is a adult, a teen, and a toddler. There's no genetic thing here. Don't outwoke me.
Oh, fair enough. God damn it.
I will outwoke you every day. I outwoke you in my sleep. I get what you're saying. That maybe, and I accept that idea. Equity accepts the idea that there is a genetic component. People who are handicapped need two boxes, and being a healthy person who has no disabilities would need none. I accept that fact. I accept the idea that there are people not as healthy and strong as me who need more help. And if they get that through tax dollars, I accept that. Not only do I accept that, I think that's part of a good working society. Welfare works. 90% of the people on welfare, this is again a stat I'm making up, but I read it a long time ago. 90% of the people on welfare are elderly and children, or the disabled. That composes 90% of the people on welfare. The elderly, who need the help because they can't do any better. Children, who need the help, they can't do any better. And the handicapped, who need help and can't do any better. Yes, 10% of it is other people. And you can, if you gave me a plan to move that 10% down to 9, 8, 7, 6%, I would be okay with it. That is something we can work on. But we can't work on those things. If Fox News is telling you the welfare queens are driving Cadillacs, we can't work on those things. We can't come to conclusions. You and I do often come to conclusions and stuff like that, but the majority of the people in this country can't because they're misinformed, filled with delusions by both sides.
You know,
and that is the point that I've been trying to drive towards.
I don't know if I agree, because I think that becoming exceptional requires a certain amount of pressure in the first place. If you make
pressure leads to diamonds, is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, pressure makes diamonds, right?
Okay.
Does have to be. I mean, if you are born into a tough situation and you work to get out of it, you'll probably be a more exceptional individual than a lot of people who are born into a very nice, promising situation, and then proceed to squander it away.
Okay, I can appreciate both of those stances. I can, but we're running a society. We're talking about running societies.
So what I think is we should give the same opportunity as best we can to people, but their outcome is up to them.
Okay.
If they fail in developing themselves to a certain point, then we shouldn't make an example of them to be like, oh, they failed, so we're just gonna give them everything they need. No, you have to fight for it. And when people see like, oh shit, life kind of sucks if you don't fight and struggle and try your best to succeed, then people overall in general will start moving in the right direction in becoming exceptional individuals.
Except
I believe
the
in
ones
equality.
That fail. There will be people who fail. It's about failure. I know. Communism is about failure. Left-leaning ideas are about the people who cannot succeed. That is the thing that I'm looking at. I'm looking at the people who can't succeed.
There's a
the
difference
pressure,
between people who can't succeed versus people who refuse to.
who won't succeed. Yes, you're right. I agree. That's why we need to balance the things. If the government gives you everything you need to live, I recognize that lots of people will stop, will avoid the pressure. They will not become better people. I recognize that idea. But the direction that I look and the thing that I point towards and the thing that I fixate on generally is the people who can't succeed, the people who have tried and failed. The pressure was applied, 10 people became diamonds, and 100 crumbled. That makes me worried. That makes me nervous. That pressure made 100 people crumble, and they cannot get better. They cannot get up. They are stuck in a ghetto and cannot leave, just based on bad luck, based on they didn't get the right education, or they were late for something, or maybe they had a medical issue. Maybe they are just dumb. Maybe they're just born with a lower IQ. What do we do with those? That is the direction that the leftist looks. That is the direction that I tend to point towards. I'm not saying you're wrong about the diamonds and the pressure, and that makes society better. That does. It really does.
You take away those pressures to improve, which is what equity is. Unfortunately, you can't have equity and the pressure at the same time.
I think you're right. I think they are competing ideologies. I think you're right there. I think you are correct.
But I do think we need more of the Nikola Teslas and Albert Einsteins and the great men and women of history.
If that comes with a side effect of thousands living in poverty their entire lives, that's acceptable.
I mean, give me a break on that too. I mean, define poverty even. Being in poverty in America is living a luxury lifestyle in most other countries in the world. Not
I agree.
European countries, but go to any number of countries and poverty in America is like you're living pretty good.
Right. And which direction am I going to look as the leftist? Like I told you 5 minutes ago, I'm going to look at those people that are living in poverty within the entire world. But I don't control their things, and we don't have a world government. So you get left-leaning people suggesting that we shouldn't capitalize on their labor. We shouldn't be extracting all their minerals for our benefit. We shouldn't be forcing them to grow all the bananas and then sell it to us for a nickel a piece, and then we sell them for a large markup to Americans. We shouldn't be doing colonialism, where we go in there, we take all their oil and leave them with nothing. Those are all left-leaning situations or ideas, anyway. If there are poverty, the world's a big place, so there's a billion. I would imagine there's 9 billion people and 9 billion stories. Some of them overlap, some of them don't, sure. And is America a better place to live than there? Yes, I agree. Is part of that due to capitalism? Yes, I agree. But there are downsides to capitalism. There are downsides to the colonialism that we did before it was a bad thing.
I think the downsides to capitalism are invented in your head.
Okay, so that's a delusion that I have. That's entirely acceptable.
When it comes to the quality of life that a person that's in poverty in America has versus the person that's in poverty in, I don't know,
Bangladesh,
Somalia.
You're in Somalia. You're starving to death. You're in poverty in Somalia, much different than the in poverty in America. I agree.
Yes, like we're doing a lot better here. equality of opportunity suggests that, hey, you're not worried about are you going to starve when like you're a child, right? We're going to give you the opportunity to succeed, and it's up to you to actually make it happen. But after the fact, are we going to make it so that the guy that invents the next jet engine and the guy that drops out of high school, which was provided to him for free, and does nothing with his life. I mean, we're going to make it so that they have equal outcomes in terms of like the way that they live and how much they make and whatnot. No, I don't think that's a good idea at all.
I don't think anybody's suggesting that. That is
what equity is.
No, it's not. You have here we are at the delusion. The right wing has a delusion about what equity actually is and thinks that it is forcing everyone to have, like you said, the same bank account. Everybody will have the same amount of money no matter what the job is. That is not what it is. You are delusional. That is the delusion that has been sent to you. Equity is just like we described it. X and V has a actual good point. A normal-sighted person doesn't need glasses. Somebody with stigmatism needs a little bit of glasses, and a blind person needs way more accommodations. We accommodate that blind person because they can't help it. They haven't changed. No one on the left is suggesting that if you invent a new product that is helpful and makes a bunch of money, that you shouldn't be rewarded for it. Nobody is suggesting that. Nobody is suggesting that everybody be given the same amount of money. They're just suggesting that the ultra wealthy use that wealth to enrich themselves through the stock market, through buying politicians, things like that, to make themselves more money. And we should tax them more so that they can pay for those people on the bottom. Redistribution of wealth is equity. I would agree it is. And it's a good idea. It's not going to stop you from succeeding. It's not going to stop you from trying to create a new thing. It's not going to stop that person from making a bunch of money on that great new idea that he invented.
What the fuck are you even talking about?
It's so unusual to you that you don't even know.
Hold on.
You've never heard a leftist argument before. You've never heard one.
The hilarious thing is that you've just described the exact same situation, but in a more roundabout way. Okay, so the jet engine person and the person that drops out of high school and it does whatever, sells cocaine.
Well, let's stick to not illegal things. Let's not stick to illegal things. So he's
and the person that drops out of high school
at the gas station.
Maybe works part-time at McDonald's.
He works part-time at McDonald's. Yeah. I'm on board for any of these things.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting they should get the same amount of money. I've never suggested that. No, I'm not. I've never suggested that. No one on the left has ever suggested that. You are delusional. This is a delusion that they have sold you. This is the delusion that the right wing has sold you.
The delusion is that you think that these two situations are different. The first one is, okay, the guy that designs the jet engine makes $100 per week, let's say. And we're just throwing numbers out there so I can make easy math, right?
Sure. Guerrilla math. I love it.
Yeah, $100 a week. And the McDonald's worker also makes $100 a week. That's equity.
Why would they do that? That's not equity. That's insane. No one's pushing for that. No one is suggesting that. No one is pushing that on the left.
Except for the part that you say. I get it. Yeah, you are, but you don't know it.
Okay.
You're
through taxes. That's all he makes.
Instead, the jet engine guy makes $1,000 a week, but after the first $90, he's taxed at 90% of his income. Well, guess what? The outcome is he still makes $100 a week, and those taxes go towards the guy working at McDonald's making $5 a week, so that they can bring his income up from $5 to $100, so that you're at the same point. It's the same thing.
It will not get to that point. No one is suggesting absolutely everybody makes the same amount of money. Nobody's suggesting
it's the end result of equity. That is equity.
Losing 5%.
Yes.
Losing 5% of your $1 billion isn't making minimum wage. Being taxed a small percentage of your wealth is not the same as making minimum wage. No one on the left has ever suggested that.
No one on the left is suggesting a small percentage either.
Yes, they are.
Fuck out of here.
Yes, they fucking
Get out.
are.
No,
they are.
No.
You've been delusioned. Fox News gave you a delusion that Elizabeth Warren is going to force everybody to make the exact same amount of money all the time for everything, always. Work at McDonald's, you make $15 an hour. Work at CEO of Microsoft, $15 an hour.
Are we not already at what is it? A 47% tax for above 400K.
And there's still billionaires floating about. And we
I
still
get
don't
that.
have enough tax money to fund the government. And we still have people in poverty.
Yes,
You're suggesting
we do.
that... okay. You're not suggesting anything.
I'm not suggesting it.
I know,
I'm making.
I'm not
I mean, in order to do what you're talking about, we're talking about, getting up there in terms of taxes. We're 47 for the top tax bracket now.
Mm-hmm.
Should we go higher?
Yes.
How high?
Until there are no billionaires. The fact that
So
there's
90%.
If
So
that gets
exactly
them, if
the
that gets
situation
them
I just
to $999,999.99, 100% over that. Yes. Is
okay.
Is
That's fine.
999 million how much
then
you're going to make at working at McDonald's?
So then why would you sit there and contest me for so long over the analogy of jet engine guy makes $1,000, but he's taxed 90% to get down to 100, versus McDonald's guy who makes $5, and that the taxes from the jet engine guy go to the McDonald's guy, and now they both make $100 in total as net income.
He's not making okay. The McDonald's guy is not getting up to 999 million. The jet engine guy is. That's the difference. The McDonald's guy is going to be at about $40,000 a year, and the jet engine guy is going to be at $200,000 a year.
Not if you tax the jet engine guy enough to make it to his income.
I said
and the
billionaires.
McDonald's income
I didn't
is the
say
same.
billionaire. He's not a billionaire. Is this jet engine guy a worker, or is he an owner that has $10 billion right now? Maybe I'm confused on who we're talking about.
He invents the next most
and he made $10 billion.
best jet engine and makes however much it costs to buy the jet engine. Is it how much?
I would tax him.
I mean, that's a whole different conversation.
So that he's not a billionaire. No more billionaires. That's what the actual left wants. Not everybody makes minimum wage all the time. I'm not going to tax him until he gets down to minimum wage. That's not what anybody's pushing. No more billionaires. If he's making $400,000 a year, then he's making $400,000 a year. He's paying the same taxes he is now. If he's making $500,000 a year, I don't care. Tax him the same structure we've got now. If he's at $1 million a year, I don't give a shit. Tax him the same we are right now. But when you get to 999 million, there's a new structure. There's a new tax in structure bracket called the billionaire tax. I'm all right with that. The billionaire is where I think we need to draw the line. That's where the line is. Because what they're doing with that money is not helping society, it's harming us. They're using it to buy stocks and stock buybacks, and they're using it to manipulate the market. If you had $100 million, if you had $1 billion, could you manipulate the market? Elon does it all the fucking time. He's a billionaire and he manipulates the market with his money. He's harming you. He's harming me. He's harming our entire society. Far more than any fucking brown-skinned farm worker who crossed a border. Elon and the billionaires are harming us severely. And they are lying to you about how important they are. They are over-exaggerating the harm of the poor people. They're exaggerating about how important they are. They should be taxed more, yes.
That's all right. You've brought the conversation into
I know, I'm ranting.
The real world, where we were talking about a hypothetical situation between equality and equity.
Okay,
where
yes, you're right. I've gone off the rails into a leftist rant. You're right. Equity and equality is fine.
My hypothetical situation was designed to explain why I don't agree with equity in the first place. Okay, I don't agree with the equality of outcome.
I think you've got delusions about it. No one's pushing for equality of outcome. Nobody. You've got a delusion.
Except that the way that I just explained things, when you talk about the taxes and whatnot, the way I've just explained things results in the same outcome when you talk about increasing taxes for higher earners.
It literally didn't.
It did.
No, it
literally did.
It literally didn't.
In the hypothetical?
In the hypothetical, it didn't, because the hypothetical, the jet engine is paid more, and he gets more. How much money is he keeping?
The jet engine guy makes $1,000 a week, and he's taxed at 90%, so he makes $100.
Nobody's pushing that. Nobody's pushing that. Absolutely nobody. You are delusional to think that that's the left's plan.
That's
what I'm telling
you.
Is. It's not what equity is. You don't know what it means. You have a misunderstanding. You've created a delusion, and now, if you were a politician, you'd be spreading that fear. MDF.
I don't think that you understand what equity is. Then I mean,
that's what we're talking about. Nobody understands what it is. There is a misunderstanding. You and I can discuss misunderstandings. What happens on the big politics stage? There is a misunderstanding. Donald Trump creates a fucking delusion about how they're going to tax you to death, and then he spreads that fear. That is what the MDF is for. Not for you and me to, well, it is for you and me, but what I'm doing with this idea, this stupid little fucking thing that I invented, not this thing, this stupid little fucking thing, right? Where'd it go? Here. This MDF thing that I'm doing, Misunderstanding Delusion and Fear, is pointing at the large talking points that Republicans are making, that they're making on TV, things that are said on Fox News. That's what I'm talking about. Not you and me discussing what DEI means. I think what is pushed on right-wing media right now. White men can't get jobs. The only reason they hired Kamala was because of her skin color and the fact that she had a vagina. They said that on fucking Fox News. So wait, that's true?
That one's true though.
Okay, you're delusional. You have a delusion that has been given to you by Fox News. They are deluding you. They are tricking you. They are lying to you so that they can get more power. Donald Trump is lying to you to get more power.
Joe Biden himself was the one that was like, yeah, I basically only am considering black women.
That's not the same.
By definition,
That's not the same as saying that she failed the bar and has never had a job and doesn't know what she's doing and has no and she's just a random person picked up off the street because she's black and a woman. That is not what they're talking about. There is a directional. This is a coin that's looked at from two different sides. And you're telling me it's heads, and I'm telling you it's tails. But we're looking at
the idea that she's a DEI hire comes straight from Joe Biden's lips. That he's
you're misunderstanding what Joe Biden said. You are delusional about what he said. You are misunderstanding what Joe Biden said, and it causes this right-wing delusion that she is a completely utter failure and has never done anything of note. She failed. Donald Trump said it in that speech. She failed the bar. He said that. She failed it once, and then she studied harder, and then passed it a second time.
She did fail then.
She did fail, but that's what he's not saying that she did she studied harder the second time, and then passed it the second time. He's saying it as if she is completely meritless, completely and totally worthless. She has accomplished nothing.
He's exaggerating. I get that.
So it's a delusion. That's what I'm saying. This is why I keep coming back to this thing.
But even the delusion that you're suggesting is the idea that it's never a consideration a person's race or gender and whatnot when they're being considered for higher positions and whatnot, and that's just not true.
If you're doing DEI properly, you will see those things. Yes, colorblindness of the '90s is gone. Nobody does that anymore. It was a bad thing. We got better.
No, colorblindness is a good thing, and it should be implemented more often.
It's nonsense.
Yes.
No, it was a bad ideology, so we moved beyond it. The colorblindness makes you ignore other people's differences. That's not a good idea. Don't ignore the differences between people. Recognize them, see them, understand why they are different, how they are different, and how you should act accordingly. That's what DEI suggests. There's a million billion things to understand DEI, but that is what they're trying to get you to understand. In the DEI world, equity is equality of outcome. I don't think it is. I think there is a delusion about what it is. I point back towards, what's his name? Kermit the Frog. Jordan Peterson. He talks a lot about equity and inclusion and equity of outcome. Outcome is the most important thing for these leftists. They push everyone to have the same outcome. That's not true. He's lying to you. He is giving the people a delusion because it benefits him to do so.
I think if you've already agreed to the idea that people are being considered based on their race and gender for positions,
it's a part of the thing, sure. But so is your credit score. So is the way you spelled the words on your job application. If you got a job application that was spelled all poorly, wouldn't you then put that into your understanding? You can look at all the information. I'm just saying it's part of all information.
It shouldn't be a part of the consideration at all. And that goes in the other direction too. Nobody should be disqualifying candidates for a job position because they're black. That's fucking ridiculous.
Is that not what Fox News is fucking doing? When Jesse Waters sits there and says, oh, she's a DEI hire, She didn't pass her bar exam? He's doing exactly what you're talking about. He's saying she's not qualified because she's black and because she's a woman. If she's stolen a job from a white man,
that's
she's
not
stolen
any.
it. That's exactly what he's doing.
Close to what
Absolutely
he's saying.
what they're doing.
No,
I watch Fox News all the time. That's what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing.
If she was white and a man, he would still say the same thing because she's not qualified for the job. And she hasn't done enough to deserve to be the president. She hasn't had major achievements.
He would point
what
at something
major achievements had she had? And Joe Biden would have picked somebody else as VP, and he would have picked somebody else as VP if Kamala was a white man, because she wouldn't have even been on his list if he wasn't. If she wasn't a black woman.
He used DEI to come to a decision. Yes, but that's a positive decision. And Jesse Waters, and on Fox News, is using it in a negative context to suggest that she isn't as qualified. And there was someone more who is a white man. Okay? And because she's not a white man, she can't possibly be as qualified as a white man. She can't.
There are untold numbers
DEI
of people that aren't white men that are more qualified than Kamala Harris is. Are you kidding?
Okay. So when Joe Biden chose vice president, yes, he accepted part of DEI into that equation. It's a math equation with 1,000 variables. One of them is the DEI equation. One of them, one variable in that 100-part equation is DEI. Yes. Why is that unacceptable? Why is that a terrible idea? When the Republicans talk about it, they focus on that.
A lesser qualified person is now in the position of major power.
How are you less qualified? How is that less qualified if you accept that DEI is part of the equation? It's simply a part of the equation. You are vilifying this part of the equation.
Be a part of the equation.
You're vilifying this part of the equation because Fox News has given you a delusion. Fox News has given the Republicans a delusion about what DEI is, what it means, and what it means for them. They are lying. They are screaming about DEI every day, every single day on Fox News. They are screaming about DEI because they want their people to have this delusion because it benefits them. It benefits Fox News. It benefits Donald Trump to say DEI hire. Donald Trump doesn't know what DEI means. He has no fucking idea.
We know, everyone knows what DEI means in general, and it doesn't even.
No, they don't.
I'm telling you that Kamala was a DEI hire. Sorry, she is. And you know what? I'll tell you somebody who's not a white dude who's a better hire than Kamala was, and still is, and will probably be your next presidential candidate after Kamala loses this one. And it's going to be Cory Booker. He's a black dude who is infinitely more qualified than Kamala ever was, and still is more qualified than Kamala ever was. And no, I mean,
I like Cory Booker. He's not a bad idea. I would have accepted him as being part of.
And the fact that Joe
they would have called him a DEI hire. They would have called him a DEI hire.
Well, then you would have a better argument because he's more qualified than Kamala is.
It's literally the same argument. Literally the same argument. They would call Cory Booker a DEI hire because he's black. Everyone who isn't a white straight male is a DEI hire. Everyone.
Do you know why Kamala is the candidate right now? The presidential candidate is because
the vice president.
Chosen because she was the vice president
4 years ago.
Chosen by him 4 years ago
because
as
he
a DEI
that she
candidate,
would bring
so that
more
she
votes
could bring more voters
yes.
because she looked like people that would vote for her because he wanted more people he wanted more women and more African American people to vote for him.
Okay.
And yes, that is part of the political equation, but it doesn't make it any less of a DEI hire.
No, it doesn't. And I'm accepting the fact that he used DEI. I'm saying that the people on Fox News are lying about what DEI means.
And I'm saying that's a bad thing.
They misunderstand it. They don't know what the actual definition is, and they're creating a delusion. And
what's the
spreading
delusion?
That fear? That DEI, she was chosen for her race and her gender only. Nothing else. She has never done anything else. She's just off the street, never even finished high school. She failed her bar exam. She is completely and totally worthless. She has no accomplishments. She's never done anything. And she was chosen only for her race and her sexuality. Only. That is what they are pushing. That is the delusion that they are giving to the people because they want to. It makes the people feel.
I think you're being hyperbolic. It's certainly true that she had a public office at some point. To be the Attorney General of California,
She won an election for that, I think. Or was she appointed?
Yes, she did.
She won an election for that.
I think that's an election, yeah.
Mhm.
Except for the fact that being the Attorney General of California doesn't make you presidential candidate material. And
It does.
since then, she was chosen by Biden, who was a president, for VP. She did nothing for 4 years. And the reason, by the way, that she is
vice president
on the
does
ticket right now.
anything. No vice president does anything.
The reason that she's on the ticket right now is not because of DEI, other than the fact that Biden chose her in the first place. And it's not because she's the best candidate for the job either.
Yes, it is.
The reason is because, yes, it is. The reason is because $250 million was raised by the Biden campaign before Biden dropped out. And the funds are only accessible by a candidate who is on that ticket, which means that they want that $250 million. Kamala's the only one that can use them. And so if they had done anything else, if they had tried to elevate Michelle Obama, or if Cory Booker had taken the stage, or if it was Gavin Newsom from California, they would not have access to the war chest that's been built already. That's why Kamala is the candidate right now.
You know what I'm going to call that?
Why she's the nominee.
You know what I'm going to call that? A delusion.
What?
It's a delusion.
Oh, no.
You're telling me the politicians can't move money around? It's their entire fucking job. That was a conspiracy theory. It was. If the DNC has this money, they can give it to whoever the fuck they want. They can do with it whatever the hell they want. It's their money. Only Kamala can get that money. Nonsense. I did read about an article suggesting exactly what you were talking about, and I read one suggesting that article was full of shit, and that it is not a true thing, and they can move that money around wherever they want. That sounds like, and maybe I've got the delusion. Maybe they can't move that around. Maybe you're entirely correct, and that I'm telling you that they can move it and they can't by law or something like that. But politicians and money and law, they just do whatever the fuck they want, honestly. You're telling me a politician can't move money from one pile to another? It's all they fucking do. They're all lawyers, literally, all of them. That's what they do.
That's kind of the whole reason why there was a controversy around Bernie Sanders' campaign a few years ago.
Because it moved money around?
No, because he couldn't move the money around after he took all those donations, and the money couldn't be moved around, and then he spent it on another mansion, if I recall.
Okay. And if he can't spend it on a mansion. That doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound possible. I don't know what you're talking about, but that sounds like an incorrect thing. It sounds like a delusion. It really does. It sounds like something that would come on fucking Fox News. And Alex Jones would absolutely push that. So Bernie took all these money from the people, and then he couldn't move it to Hillary, so he just bought himself a new mansion. That sounds like a delusion to me. I'm not saying it is. You could be entirely correct. I don't know anything about it. But right off the top of my head, that sounds like that's not a thing you can do. And if you can, it's a good reason why you shouldn't have money in politics. I'm looking at Kamala's career. Attorney General of California, Deputy District Attorney in Alameda, California, able prosecutor on her way up. Yes, this is all going to be the nice things, but it's Wikipedia. Largest recoveries of history in California's False Claims Act over Medi-Cal and federal employees. So she's doing things. Agreement, Apple, Amazon, Google mandate apps sold on their stores display prominent privacy policies. California Department of Justice, recidivism reduction, re-entry. She's done things. She's not just sitting around watching cartoons all day like I do. After being elected, Harris declared her office would not defend Prop 8. This is a thing. 2011, this is a thing. 2012, she did this thing. This isn't a complete, utter, unemployed person being chosen to run for office. And
I didn't say that she was.
Fox News did. They said she was worthless. You said worthless. You said valueless, didn't you? I think you used the word worthless. It's done nothing was what you said.
As a political candidate, done nothing. Both of those things, I would say, when it comes to presidential politics, yes. And
done nothing. There's a Wikipedia page.
XNV.
Mm-hmm. XNV
makes the exact point. If not for her gender and race, she would have been disqualified by Biden's criteria. That's it. He wanted a black female
who had a good
as his running mate.
Who had a good record.
Well, obviously, you're not just picking up some...
Obviously, you're not just picking up somebody off the thing. You are accepting my terms, yet saying that you're not accepting them. That's what
I don't accept them because the criteria itself is flawed.
The criteria.
You're accepting the criteria. The criteria being a black female who has has like a reasonable political career. But
that's the equation.
I'm saying, okay, except for the fact that a reasonable political career versus an exceptional one. I would not be fighting you nearly as hard if Cory Booker was the candidate right now.
Because he's not a woman?
Because
she's double DEI? Because she's black and woman?
Because his track record is a lot better. Except that he was disqualified from being the vice president as a result of the fact that he has a penis. It's fucking retarded.
She had more political points than he did. She had more benefit to him as a politician. How is that not the right thing? If she brings more votes, then that's the right answer.
That's fine. And so what all you're agreeing with is that DEI is a political tactic.
Of course it is.
And that's fine.
Everything's political. Great. DEI is a political tactic. DEI is a tactic that HR departments at your company use.
So should we mandate DEI at corporations that don't involve needing political sway?
No.
Should we mandate quotas for certain levels of minorities and or women to be at certain levels of...
No, I don't want to mandate that. I want the company to make that decision.
Well, see, that's the thing, though, is that DEI that we're talking about that is beneficial when it comes to a political arena is being used in the corporate world. And that's what you're talking about in your spreadsheet.
Everything is political.
Oh, excuse
including
me.
The selling of an app.
Put that in your spreadsheet there, and your defense of Kamala Harris is not the same as the defense of DEI being pushed in the workplace, in corporate culture, in anywhere else.
Those are two different
look at that. White
situations.
Men can't get jobs. The only reason you got hired was because of race and gender. Your defense of Kamala doesn't even defend that because, I mean, DEI in politics is
two different situations.
Two
different situations. DEI at work is what they're screaming about on Fox News. White men can't get jobs. The only reason that somebody got hired was because of their race and their gender, and the white men lose power. If you want to talk about it in politics, I'm willing to. I hear what you're saying, and I think you're making a good point that they ought to be two different things. Yes.
Well, there we go. They are two different things, and to your point, yes, it is beneficial to pick a DEI pick like Kamala Harris in politics because it gets you more votes, and so it is part of the equation. But it shouldn't be part of the equation in anything else.
It shouldn't be part of the equation at work.
It shouldn't be part of the equation at work. It shouldn't be part of the equation in colleges. It shouldn't be a part of the equation anywhere. Everything should be racially blind and gender blind. It should all be done with blind applications.
Impossible. Literally impossible. That is impossible. It cannot be done. And because it can't be done, I don't want anybody to try, I guess, is what I'm saying. Trickle down. Trickle. So this is what they're pushing. This is what the people on Fox News, and again, I am always bringing it up to that top level because I think this is a top level sheet I'm filling out here. DEI in politics. Kamala gets chosen for her gender and ethnicity, and that will trickle down to you and your job. Are you a white man? You're going to get fired because you're not a black lady. That is what they are pushing. That is the fear that they are driving. That is the fear that they're driving on right-wing media. Kamala was chosen for her gender and ethnicity, and you're next. You're fucking next.
That's a little ridiculous.
That is what they're pushing. That is what I hear when I listen to them. I study the people on the right. I study what they are saying, why they're saying it, and this is what the conclusion that I've come to. That they misunderstand, create a delusion, and then they spread fear.
Not at all. And you don't have to directly be like, you're gonna be fucked.
That's what they're telling the people.
Overall situation.
That's what they're telling the people. That it's the wokies, and you can't get a job unless you're sufficiently woke. And if you are not a black woman, you're not going to get hired.
XNV with the perfect point again. You've re-legalized race-based hiring, and get fucked.
It's always been
with race-based hiring.
It's always been the way. That's always been the way. It always has been.
It hasn't always been.
It always will be.
Nope.
It always has been. I'm willing to accept the fact that it exists. Racism exists. I accept that idea. How do we deal with it? How do we work with it? You're going to suggest blind hiring? How does that happen? I don't think it can happen.
I'll tell you how it happens. You develop a system to where when applicants submit a resume, the name and the race of that person is stripped from the resume for the person that is reviewing that resume for hiring decisions. So that way You don't know the name, like, because apparently people with unique names don't get hired as often.
Right. I recognize that's a problem.
What you do, it is a problem. So what you do is you don't allow the reviewers of a resume to see the name or race or gender of the person who is applying for the position, and then they only read the resume, and till then there will be spelling errors and whatnot, and then you can go, oh, I don't want this person because they can't spell a 4-letter word correctly. You'd still be reading the resume and go, oh, this person is very qualified for this position. Maybe we should hire this person. And they don't know if this person is white or black, or if they're a man or a woman, or anything. It's not relevant to whether or not they can do the job properly.
I agree to an extent, but listen, can't we just make people not racist? Can't we just raise people to not be racist and sexist? Wouldn't that be a much better option? You wouldn't have to do all this blind nonsense with the crossing out of the names if people were actually properly trained and raised to not be racist.
Okay, in the meantime, how about we do the blind stuff so that they can't be racist?
It enforces racism. It enforces the idea that you can't fix your racism. You are going to be racist and you can't do a damn thing about it. Of course you are. Oh, of course you can do something about it. You can be
the idea that
recognizing your biases. Blindness is not the answer to any fucking thing.
The idea that we can totally stamp out racism from anywhere is totally ludicrous. It's going to happen. Babies are racist.
Completely eradicate it, but we can train each other using DEI principles how to recognize that we are being racist and get past it and bring some equity or equality to what we're doing.
That's a completely different project. A completely different project from the question at hand right now, though. Like, yes, we should work towards that, but at the same time, at this very moment, we should recognize that DEI practices are probably a bad thing, and race-blind hiring and gender-blind hiring should probably be the norm.
At the moment, I'm going to agree with you. That's probably a better idea, but I would like us to progress. Honestly, I think you're right that at the moment, gender blind and racial blind is probably a better idea. But that's because we're limiting the people. Blindness, I don't think, is a good idea. Being blind to those things is accepting the idea that you are racist and you can't fix it. You have biases and you cannot fix them. I think you can. I think we can all be better. I think we can all become more educated and better on these issues if we just get along. Or understand what the other person is doing.
DEI hiring actually, I think, is detrimental. And here's why. Is because when you go to see a doctor, for example, for an emergency condition, you definitely would never want to go into that doctor's office and wonder whether or not the person that's treating you for whatever condition was chosen because they are exceptional or because they were of the correct skin color and genitalia. You want the most qualified person.
You know what I'm going to say to you right now?
In that scenario.
You're misunderstanding what DI is. You've created a delusion, and now you're spreading fear. That's what you're doing. That's what I think you've done here. You have misunderstood what DEI is. You have created a delusion about this doctor who didn't get an education and didn't graduate from medical school, and you have created fear. MDF. You've done it. This is the Republican process. This is sometimes the Democrat process as well, but I'm suggesting that is the Republican process. Misunderstand, delusion, fear.
Not at all. No.
Did that person graduate from medical school? Yes,
it doesn't
they
matter.
did. What does that not matter? How does that not matter for your doctors? If you didn't graduate,
how does somebody get into medical school? So you have to have grades in public school, right? So one student who graduates from, for example, well, it doesn't even matter what high school, with a 3.6, and another one with a 3.8.
Sure.
And both of them apply to the same medical school.
Uh-huh.
Which one should be accepted?
How many spots do we have? We only have one spot. We have to pick the one.
We're competing for the same spot. So
same spot.
A student with a 3.6 or a 3.8.
Pick the guy with the highest grade point average. I don't care. If
that's the only thing. You're not you're not the one with a 3.8. So the one with a 3.8 is Asian, and the one with a 3.6 is black. Which one gets into the school?
Well, now we've added more variables, haven't we? Once you start adding those variables and you start determining what is best for our school, what is best for our company. What if, follow me here, what if having
We're talking about
20%,
doctors,
okay,
people going to medical
what
school.
if having people of color is better for your business? What if that makes you more money? Shouldn't they do it? Shouldn't they do it? If the company says, hey, if I hired these 5 black people, I get more black customers, that increases my amount of money. Wouldn't he do so? Wouldn't he be free to do so?
I see what you're doing here. And you're making the suggestion that because capitalism, appealing to the greatest demographic of customers possible is most profitable. But what I'm saying is that in terms of getting into medical school, should be 100% about your qualifications.
God, no.
And the Asian guy, what the fuck?
Not in the
Absolutely,
not in the
it should
capitalist hellhole that you live in. It's about who makes the most money for the fucking college. The college doesn't allow people in that can't pay unless they are getting something on the other side of it.
How does the
business.
DEI? Hold on a second. How does choosing someone based on race make the college more money?
Then the college gets to brag about how open and progressive they are. The college gets to make more money.
How does that make them more money?
It makes them more money.
It doesn't.
Unless somebody's, they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart.
Unless they're receiving like grants or subsidies or something like that from.
They very well could be, or they're talking about how open and progressive
except
and
they
brilliant they are.
Because our government does that.
Right.
And you know what? We shouldn't be doing that.
What, giving
grants because
you're going about it the other direction.
Quotas,
it shouldn't be a business.
Making quotas for race, making or giving grants for diversity and whatnot. This is all things that our government is sponsoring right now. The same government that makes DEI hires, as you agreed to,
yes,
is the one that's funding DEI inclusion, like DEI incorporation into our schools and into
right.
and into businesses
and
too.
It shouldn't be run for
guess
profit.
What?
None of those things should run for profit. That college shouldn't be run for profit, and they shouldn't be making these decisions to get more profit.
I'm not talking about what should be. I'm talking about what is.
I know.
And
we
the
live
fact
in a
is that the
capitalist
government
hellhole.
should not be incentivizing DEI. I'm saying that everything should be race blind in terms of and gender blind in terms of where you hire people from.
Okay. Are we?
And we should not be incentivizing companies to hire people based on their sex or their race. It's
if
ridiculous.
The company makes more money that way, why wouldn't they do it? Of course they would.
They make more money because we incentivize it in the first place by giving them
company.
Weren't we just talking about fucking medical school? What the fuck?
Okay, so we're talking about college now. Great. College is a fucking dystopian capitalist nightmare. It has a million problems. That is one of them. Yes. They have a million problems that I would solve by taking all the goddamn money out of it and making it a government-only situation. And in that case, you could say, okay, let's measure, let's give it to the most qualified, and let's add to that equation who is the worst off within the country, who is the poorest, who is from a bad neighborhood, who can't get out on their own. I would completely accept a government doing that. I would.
Hold on. Say that criteria again. Go ahead.
Evil, monstrous leftist dictator Waldo has taken over the entire country. I have banned all for-profit colleges. That is gone. It's done. You do not educate people for a profit. You can pay people to educate, pay the teachers, pay the professors, pay for people to do the things. Great. Pay the janitors, all those things. But that comes from the government. Single-payer education. Sort of like we had with the first 12 years. Single-payer education. And when you accept people into those colleges, you accept just about everybody, but if there is a limited amount, you would take into effect their race, their economic status, where they're coming from, and if they were more poverty-stricken.
No.
Yes, I accept this. I think this is not only a good idea, it is it's that equity that we were talking about. That person who is short gets 2 boxes. That's what I'm describing. I fully accept that idea. I think that is exactly how they ought to work. Because the person who is taller doesn't need the boxes. The person who is more well off, who has richer parents, who comes from a nicer part of the country, can apply again next year, or they can get a better opportunity, or they can they have more opportunities available from
I think that
each to each
your
to their
system
needs.
results in deterioration of trust in systems in the first place because you don't know how qualified somebody was to do a job that you're trusting them to do.
They
And
graduated. That's the trust. Do you know what they call the guy with the lowest grades when he graduates medical school? Doctor, because he graduated. There's lots of people who did not graduate. There's lots of people who dropped out. There's lots of people who flunked out. They're not called doctor.
it doesn't. I mean, the ridiculous thing is that and you're gonna like this point because it's a capitalism-based point. Schools are incentivized, especially the more prestigious they are, to not flunk students out. So yes, there are a lot of students that make it out of prestigious schools that probably shouldn't have.
Donald Trump. What? Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, maybe Donald Trump himself probably shouldn't have graduated from the Wharton School of Business.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but they are incentivized because their reputation demands it to pass most of their students.
Okay.
So they do. I don't understand what your point is when it comes to like what they're called doctor when they graduate. Well, of course they are, except for the fact that now I have to wonder, are they called doctor because they're Donald Trump and they came from a wealthy family and they didn't actually belong in the Wharton School of Finance or Business or whatever, and
entirely,
or
a thing
did they
that you
get
could
there
be
on
aware
their
of.
own merit, and are they qualified to be my financial advisor or whatever? That's entirely a question to ask.
DEI in college creates.
It is true. By the way,
educated people
what?
who then are bad at doctoring. You're doing the thing. DEI in college is a thing that exists. I agree. You are creating a situation. You're creating a maybe it's not a delusion, but a scenario in which this guy shouldn't have been graduated because he paid or he got special DEI coupons that allowed him to graduate, and then he is a bad doctor. That's the fear. MDF. This is the structure of our politics at large. That is why I came up with this stupid little chart, because I think it is the structure in which all our politics happen.
Yeah, but I'm right though.
Okay, so I'm the one who is misunderstanding DEI in college, and I'm the one that is suggesting that all doctors, you can do this from your side too.
All doc road.
Shush.
Impressive.
I know. God damn it. Control Z. Okay. Sometimes the squiggles show up and let me correct my spelling. Sometimes they don't.
Now I want to know what doc road means because it clearly accepted it as a word.
Yeah, I know. That's what kills me. Sometimes I accidentally spell a word that I'm not intending to spell. I just kind of throw my hands at the keyboard and flop them around until words come out. All doctor. So this is mine. According to you, this is my MDF, my misunderstanding DEI in college, my delusion that all doctors who graduated are educated properly, and my fear that I'm spreading with that is what? What am I spreading fear? I'm pushing positivity here.
You are.
All doctors
and
are graduated
so here's the
properly.
Thing, is that I don't think that the rubric sort of works for this one because it's not even a matter of like all doctors graduated properly. It's a matter of my original point was because DEI is a consideration for businesses and for colleges.
Mm-hmm.
You are doing a disservice to the minority students, eventual doctors and business people and whatnot, who did, on their own merit, make it into school and complete school and are good doctors and other jobs and whatnot, but doctors for the example. I think the problem is when you have these ideas, like when you have DEI being pushed in this way, you can have some bad doctors, but also the ones that are good, that graduated on their own merit, you've done disservice to because they won't be trusted as much as they should be. They should be trusted more, and they're not because how do you know? How do you know whether someone graduated with honors or if they graduated as a result of some policy.
That's
or if they even
true
got
all the
into
time.
school on their own merit, or if they got into school as a result of some policy.
So you did the 3 steps. You might not agree with the labels on these 3 steps, but you did 3 steps. You described the DEI, you described the problem that might happen with DEI, and then you described the outcome, which is a bad outcome.
Wouldn't the idea of blind applications solve that problem? Because you would always know that the most qualified person was taking care of you.
Well, you've offered a solution. So here we go. I don't know how this matrix works because I've only invented it just now, and I don't know if it's any good. It might be shit, but you have just offered me a solution: blind applications. Now, I would then misunderstand what you meant by blind applications, and then I might create a delusion about them. Can't be done. Race is visible in handwriting and typing.
What?
I've created a delusion. I don't know that I don't believe it, but
okay.
I've got a delusion. And why would someone say that you can't do the blind thing? Because you can still smell the race on the way they type, the way they talk, the sentence structure. You can still smell the race. And it would then be fear that the right would use this to prove that racism isn't happening.
Isn't
Maybe?
Blind applications by definition the lack of race in making decisions?
That's because you aren't as educated as I am on this race science. You can tell who the race of the person just by the words they've typed, according to my delusion. If there is such a leftist, I don't know if there is, but if there were, this would be what they would do. You would give them a solution. They would say, I don't think it works because of this and that. And then the reason it doesn't work is pushing the fear that the right would use this to prove the racism isn't happening. I don't know a leftist who is actually suggesting this. The reason I came to this MDF thing is because I actually, honestly think that the Republicans and the right push fear 99% of the time. Do the Democrats and the left push fear? Yes, they do, just not as often. They misunderstand Project 2025 because I read a tweet about it, about how it's going to enslave all the black people. I didn't read Project 2025. I'm going to take on the guise of an absolute ignorant person who does not know what Project 2025 is, but I read a mean tweet about how it's going to enslave all the black people. So that's my delusion. It will enslave all the people. It's misspelled on purpose because YouTube hates that word. Then I would then spread fear and then blame Trump and say, don't vote for Donald Trump. He is for the 2025. I don't think that's what it says in Project 2025. Project 2025 is a bad thing, but it doesn't say this. And that is the fear that I would say. The left seems to be far less fear-based.
Far less fear-based is interesting.
Are they sometimes fear-based? Yes, sometimes they are, but less often.
Fear-based is an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to give a term to the left for where their policies come from, I think it'd be naive.
Maybe. Okay, follow me here. MDF still works. Misunderstanding delusion, fine. I did that with the DEI in college. I misunderstand what it is. I have a delusion that it's working properly, and then it's fine. I'm still doing MDF. It's just, instead of fear, I'm saying fine. So I misunderstand how that thing works. I have a delusion about how DEI works, and I'm telling you it's fine. Maybe the acronym stands, because that generally is what the left is going to do. They're going to say, okay, here's how it works. Here's how it's supposed to work. Everything's fine. Or when they're pushing fear, it's about fear of the horrible nightmare monster fascists who are going to enslave everybody. Okay, they're pushing fear there. But when it comes to DEI, the left is telling you specifically, this is how it works. It's good. It's fine. And if you get rid of it, maybe the Republicans get rid of things. So yeah, I guess, I mean, they seem to be much less fear-based is the answer that I keep coming to.
Except for the part where it's like, you know, fascism is going to
except for that one fear right there. There is, I think, some legitimate fear, and you have legitimate fears. We talked about fears during that stupid fear project that didn't work very well. Sometimes it's legitimate to have that fear. Sometimes it is okay to fear things that are about to happen. If you're in the ocean, it's okay to fear sharks. It makes sense. You're in the fucking ocean. Right now, I do not fear sharks at this moment. It would be ridiculous of me to fear sharks while sitting in my house. Probably not going to get me. Fear is, I think, what the right wing uses on TV, what Donald Trump spits all day long. Every time he speaks. Fear the invasion, fear the people that are coming across the border, fear the criminals that are coming. Migrant crime is going to kill you. Fear the people that are different than you. Fear the economy, fear the left, fear Joe Biden, fear Kamala. Kamala's going to murder all the babies through abortion. Fear is all they have.
Or just, you know, reasonable concerns.
But you're suggesting, again, that they are reasonable concerns. You need to be afraid. You need to be concerned. I won't even take the word afraid. You need to be concerned with the fact that Roe versus Wade was allowing 10-month-old babies to be murdered. Like,
maybe you should be concerned about like 2 million people come across the border every year.
Right.
That might be a concern.
That's fear-based. In my opinion, that thing you just said is based on fear. Because what is the worst case scenario for those 2 million people? They're going to take your job. You're going to be without. They're going to rob you, or they're going to gobble up all the tax money with their free Medicare and their free education, and they're all going to get into college, and your kids aren't.
It doesn't have to be a fear at all.
That's fear.
It doesn't have to be either they're going to take your jobs. It could be, guess what? They just increased the supply of labor.
And made you.
And now your labor's worth less.
Worth less. Right.
That's not a fear.
That's a fear.
It's just
That's
fact.
fear. That's fear. You suspect that a thing is going to happen, and it will affect you negatively. You can be concerned. I agree that concern is an acceptable term there, but that is fear-based.
I think the application of the term implies a negative connotation that shouldn't exist, especially when, give me a break, because climate change.
Fear-based. I agree. The left pushes the fear. Absolutely.
But should they?
I think so, yes.
So there is such a thing as a reasonable and warranted fear.
Reasonable and warranted fears. Yes, I agree. It is reasonable
and
to be
very
afraid
well.
of climate change.
I'll accept
It is reasonable to be afraid that someone's going to take your job. That's a reasonable thing. You should be worried if those people bring in the labor and then your value goes down. That is a fear. I accept the idea that is a reasonable thing to be worried about. But if you build political policy based on that fear, and you go on TV the way Donald Trump does, the way the Republicans do, and spit that fear, you are causing disruption. You are causing divisiveness. You are causing the divide that is currently fucking killing us in this country.
Well, if you say so.
Okay. It is a very difficult thing to point out. It's a very difficult thing to nail down. Yeah.
I am the algorithm. Click on this video to make me happy. You wouldn't like me when I am angry.